Deep in the ruins of a shattered dungeon, a magician named Shin emerged. Not long after, a towering monster confronted him, letting out a thunderous roar. Without hesitation, Hale raised his hand. Magic surged, and a beam of light shot straight into the sky. He knelt, placing his palm against the ground. A glowing magic circle formed beneath him. Slowly, he lifted a single snowflake into the air, then unleashed the permafrost spell. An ice spirit materialized before him, frost rapidly spreading across every wall and column nearby. The monster instantly leapt back, desperate to escape. But the ice spirit exhaled a freezing wind, and with a surge of ice from Shin's hand, they froze the creature solid. A thick coat of frost sealed it in place. As the last shimmer of the magic circle beneath Shin faded, the air around them warmed, and he stood up, eyes locked on the now silent enemy. Not long ago, the House of Magicians was known as Korea's most elite magical bloodline. Among its many gifted members, Shin stood out, hailed as a once-in-a-generation prodigy. One day, he stepped into his father's office. His father, Hale, looked up and asked if he already knew. Shin nodded with a confident grin, replying that he'd carry their house's name with honor. He swore he'd graduate at the top of Obelisk Magic Academy, rise as the world's greatest Archmage, and lead their family to unprecedented glory. Gazing out the window, his father spoke softly. His son's talent wasn't just rare, it was unmatched. Turning back, he smiled, telling Shin he had immense expectations for him. He hoped Shin would conquer the interactive magic world and stand above all as a master of the magical arts. Gripping the medallion around his neck, Shin promised with a steady voice he would succeed. He'd surpass his brothers. He'd even surpass his father, the most powerful mage in the nation. 2 years later, at the prestigious Obelisk Magic Academy, a teacher gathered the second-year students. Today was the day of their practical test. He looked at Baek Sayuk and encouraged him to do his best as always. There was nothing to worry about. Baek smirked and scoffed, asking who said he was worried. In his mind, the outcome was obvious. That guy, he'll be dead last. He still can't even grasp the basics. How is he not expelled yet? Baek muttered, completely useless. Can't even cast interactive magic. MC stayed quiet, lost in thought. In today's world, modern mages were rare and highly valued. Just then, Sayuk stepped into the arena. The instructor announced the start of the practical exam. A hologram of 2 monsters flickered to life before him. Instantly, Sayuk opened a system window and summoned a fireball. It struck with precision, wiping out both enemies. The teacher nodded in approval, noting that he'd completed the task within the time limit. Sayuk shrugged, unfazed. As always, too easy. Watching from the sidelines, MC reflected on how much magic had changed. With the rise of artificial intelligence, most modern mages now had implanted chips, AI units that simplified even the toughest spells. But he couldn't use them. The teacher called his name next. MC walked into the arena. Holographic monsters appeared before him. He closed his eyes and began to focus. The first step was channeling mana into the heart, the wellspring of his magic. Then came forming the magic circle, 1 layer at a time, through 8 exact steps. Before he could complete the process, the monsters lunged. He quickly shifted to defense. From the sidelines, Sayuk let out a mocking laugh. That's his magic? Seriously? MC gritted his teeth. Sayuk scoffed. You're just a leftover from a dead era. Can't handle interactive magic. Know your place. Trash like you should quit. The monsters vanished. The time limit had expired. The teacher announced that he'd failed the test. Laughter echoed from the other students. MC clenched his fist, breathing heavily. It was another failure, but he wasn't disheartened. He had improved, even if just a little, in the speed of his magic transformation. That same day, after being branded a failure, his father gave up on him entirely. He even sent a pill meant to destroy the magic circle in his heart. But MC refused to let go of his dream. He chose to pursue magic the old-fashioned way, a path forgotten in the age of technology. It was far more difficult, with the biggest drawback being that he could only learn through ancient books. Back in his room, he stared at the growing pile of dusty tomes scattered on the floor. He couldn't help but think how much easier it would be if these old books could be digitized. His room had limits, and he was running out of space. Then his eyes landed on one particular book. Something about it stood out. Did I even buy this? He wondered, picking it up. It was worn, clearly old, but there was something about it, something that felt important. He flipped through a few pages of the book, but couldn't understand the handwriting. It was too intricate. But as he leaned in for a closer look, one name caught his eye: Ray Belbytenio. A grin tugged at his lips. It had been a long time since he'd seen that name. Ray Belbytenio, the first and greatest magician in human history, the founder of modern magic, the first emperor of the Wiener magical empire, a living legend, etched into the roots of magic itself. Back when he was younger, he used to come across Ray Bell's name constantly while reading memoirs and ancient texts. Suddenly, the book began to glow. The pages shimmered, sliding upward, bathed in golden light. Startled, he stumbled back, the brightness overwhelming his eyes. He dropped the book and shielded his face with both hands. "What is this?" As the light dimmed slightly, he peeked through his fingers, staring at the book in disbelief. Then a voice echoed from within the pages. Only those with a matching magical nature could hear it, the voice said. And now, the legendary Ray Belbytenio was entrusting this book to him. MC stood frozen, stunned that the book could actually speak. His thoughts drifted back to a moment from his past, a time when he never imagined that being an outcast, a so-called failure, would actually be his greatest advantage. That same day, after the exam, the teacher had announced that all students who failed would be attending extra classes. Someone in the crowd asked who'd failed. Another voice answered without hesitation. It was the guy who couldn't sync with artificial intelligence. MC had no choice but to endure the whispers, the stares, and the silent weight of failure. But now, something inside him had shifted. It felt like he'd been reborn. The book's light had filled his entire room, casting a glow brighter than anything he'd ever summoned. The next day, he returned to class. When lunch came around, he quietly made his way to the cafeteria and chose the farthest seat by the window, just like always. But then a familiar figure appeared, his friend, G. Sunshine. Tray in hand, he approached with a grin. "Eating alone again?" MC glanced up. "You again?" Sunshine ignored the comment and plopped down across from him. "Looks good," he said casually, then started digging in. MC watched him for a moment, thinking to himself, despite the guy's disheveled appearance, Sunshine was no slouch. He ranked among the Academy's top 10 sorcerers and had reached the third circle by the age of 18. In this dull and meaningless school life, Sunshine was probably the only one he could truly call a friend. When he didn't touch his food, Sunshine leaned over, eyeing his plate. "If you're not eating that, I'll take it," he said without missing a beat. With a scowl, MC told Sunshine to eat his own food. He frowned again, but Sunshine leaned in with a grin. "If someone's messing with you, just point him out. I'll handle the rest." MC looked out the window and brushed it off. "It's nothing." Shifting the topic, he added, "I found a strange book yesterday." Sunshine raised an eyebrow. "What kind of book?" MC replied. After the third page, the rest looked blank. Said to be by Ray Belbytenio, unless the guys planted it as a prank. But when I opened it, it lit up, and I heard a voice. Sunshine blinked. "Enchanted? That's crazy. What did the voice say?" With a small smirk, MC replied, "It said the book was an inheritance meant for someone like me. No one else would even be able to open it." Sunchan's eyes lit up. "That actually sounds awesome. Maybe I should try opening it." MC's expression turned serious. There was something else written on the last page. He paused, recalling the uneasy feeling from before. It said, to form a magic circle not in the heart, but in the brain. Sunshine immediately sat up. "All right, now that's not funny. A magic circle in the brain? Are they trying to get you killed? Give me the book. I'll check it out myself." After class, they returned to the dorms and headed straight to MC's room. MC handed him the book. "So, it only opens if the person's like the original owner, Ray Belbytenio?" Sunshine asked. MC nodded. "That's what it said. Go ahead and try." Sunshine gave it a shot. He pulled at the cover, pushed it, tried different angles, but nothing worked. The book didn't even budge. With a sigh, he handed it back. "Nope, nothing. It's like it's sealed shut." Scratching his head, Sunshine muttered, "This thing's weird. All right, forget it. I'm heading out. Get some rest, man." He waved and left the room. MC sat down and opened the book again, flipping to a page with strange drawings. He frowned. This page had been blank before. Now, glowing letters began to appear. Ray Bell's voice echoed once more. "So, you're trying to create magic circles in your heart. That's the standard method for most mages." MC narrowed his eyes. "Wait, are you saying that method is wrong?" Suddenly, the book lifted off the ground, glowing brightly. MC took a step back, uneasy. A voice rang out from within. "If you accept my will and are ready to become my disciple, Your first task is to destroy the magic circle in your heart and recreate it in your brain. Only then may you open this book again." The light vanished, and the book dropped to the floor with a thud. MC stared at it, stunned. This is going way too far for a prank. He clenched his fist, mind racing. The idea of creating a magic circle in the brain, it wasn't just absurd. It was deadly. Mana flowing through the brain could cause a complete mental collapse, even death. This is suicide, he thought, struggling to stay calm. He shoved the book aside and collapsed onto his bed, staring at the ceiling. Who in their right mind would go through with this? The next day, he walked into his teacher's office, the book tucked under his arm. The teacher looked up. "Something wrong?" MC handed him the book. "Can you take a look at this?" The man inspected the cover, running a hand over its surface. "An old manuscript? It definitely has that ancient aura about it. What exactly do you want me to do?" "I just want to know if it's sealed with magic or anything," MC said. "It won't open." The teacher raised an eyebrow. "Why do you think that?" "There's been weird talk going around." "Rumors," he replied. The teacher sighed. "You're spending too much time listening to nonsense. Focus on your studies." Still, he agreed to check. Placing his palm on the book, he focused for a moment before pulling away. "There's no trace of magic here," he said. "Let go of the fairy tales and concentrate on your work." MC thanked him and left, disappointed. He'd hoped for something, but not even Sunshine, nor now his teacher, could open the book. But then, as he walked down the hall, a faint smile crept onto his face. That meant it was real. That evening, he returned to his room. He set the book on the floor and sat in front of it, deep in thought. From his drawer, he pulled out a small bag, the pills his father had given him. Just one would erase the magic circle in his heart forever. He held the bag tightly. He could still hear his father's voice telling him to give up practicing magic, to become a great theorist instead. But that wasn't his path. No matter what, he wasn't giving up on magic. He stared down at the 2 pills trembling in his palm. Clenching his wrist tightly, he muttered to himself, "Stop shaking." He was already living life on the sidelines. What was there left to lose? Gritting his teeth, he swallowed both pills. If I die, then so be it. The pain hit instantly. His body jerked, and he tumbled from the chair. The magic circle tethered to his heart was breaking apart, shattering everything he'd built. This was the end of him as a traditional mage. There was no turning back. He was about to cross a forbidden line, pushing mana into the brain. One life ended here, so another could begin. As the mana surged into the folds of his mind, the searing pain in his chest faded, only to be replaced by something far worse. A mind-splitting agony that felt like it would rip his head apart. He convulsed, consciousness slipping, his thoughts spiraling. Is this death? Then, in the middle of that torment, a whisper, right in his ear, Raybell's voice, calm and clear. "Can you hear me?" The voice wasn't ordinary. It was formed through mana. And suddenly, the pain vanished. He found himself in a different space. All around him, mana spirits swirled, whispering, singing, laughing. They embraced him. He couldn't explain it, but he felt blessed. Then silence. When he opened his eyes again, morning light spilled across his room. He slowly sat up from the floor, still dazed, and stared at his hands. "I'm alive." Confused, he turned his gaze toward the book lying nearby. Picking it up, he saw that the once blank pages were now filled with glowing symbols. Then, Raybell's voice rang out again in his mind. "Congratulations. You've taken your first step. This book is called Idred. From this moment on, your legend begins." Through this book, he would inherit all of Raybell's magic. "You are my successor from the future," the voice said, then paused. "Wait, maybe I shouldn't call you that." Raybell chuckled softly. "No, you're my student now, Hale." And just like that, tears welled in Hale's eyes. A few days later, he sat in class like always, staring blankly at the front. Teacher words floated around the room, but Hale wasn't listening. His eyes were on the book hidden in his hands, flipping through the pages with quiet excitement. Another new section had appeared. Who would have thought magic could feel like this? Idred was filled with knowledge long forgotten, secrets buried from the world. First, he learned that mana had its own will. That was the real danger. Letting mana into the brain usually led to a violent clash of consciousness, causing permanent damage. That's why it was considered so destructive. But people like them were different. Their mental structure didn't resist mana. Their minds could block out the will of mana, keeping them safe. Hale touched the back of his head thoughtfully. So this is why I couldn't sync with interactive magic. Why I was always rejected by the chip-based system. Just then, Smith's voice cut through his thoughts, grabbing everyone's attention. He addressed the students and reminded the second years about the upcoming midterm exams. But this time, he added something new. A hush fell over the crowd as he continued. Starting this year, anyone who fails the exam will be expelled. His eyes narrowed slightly before he added, almost cheerfully, that this rule was suggested by the House of Magicians. Sayuk broke into a grin, clearly pleased. Finally, the failures will be weeded out, he muttered. Smith turned to Hale with a smirk. Looks like someone's already on the edge, he said mockingly. But the comment didn't faze Hale. His mind was elsewhere, on his father. Later that evening, he made his way into the city. As he arrived at the training center, he couldn't help but think about how overpriced everything was. Renting a simulation room here was no joke. A quick check on his phone confirmed it. 200,001 per hour? Even that was a stretch for him. Walking in, he was greeted at the front desk. Hale asked for 1 hour, and the staffer raised an eyebrow. Training alone? He asked. Hale nodded. The man handed him a card and told him to head to room 14, offering to show him how the hologram system worked. Hale politely declined. I already know, he said, as Hale disappeared down the hallway. The man watched him go, muttering to himself, Isn't that Shin Hale from the House of Magicians? Born into a powerful family, but can't even use interactive magic. What a shame. Meanwhile, Hale stepped into the room and activated a simulation. His goal was to take down a pack of wolves. After a quick stretch, he got into position as the wolves materialized, circling him, ready to pounce. He raised his hand. Low-tier beasts or not, 10 at once isn't easy. The Academy's average clear time for this test? 12 minutes and 32 seconds. Now it was time to see what the Eider's technique could do in action. Focusing, he triggered his mana, activating the Circle of Infinity. A wave of magic energy surged before him. The wolves instantly lunged. With a simple motion, a torrent of water burst forth, crashing into them. Seeing the damage he'd done, Hale smiled. This is insane. Was I always this strong? But no, it wasn't the same kind of magic others used. While they relied on circles etched near their hearts, his was different. His circle was in his brain, pushing mana through his entire body. The Infinity Circle was unlocking something buried deep within him. Extending both arms, he summoned another circle. This time, flames erupted outward. His eyes widened in shock. He hadn't expected that. Ray Bell's voice echoed in his mind, telling him not to be surprised. This was just the beginning. He still had a long journey ahead. The Infinity Circle was the foundation of the Bitinio style of magic, allowing him to shape spells just as he pictured them. A vision of his teacher appeared, gently patting him on the head before waving dismissively. This is only the first circle of the Bitinio inner style, the call of the heart. Even so, Hale was thrilled. If he could pull off this level of magic at just the first circle, what more could he achieve? Motivated, he dove back into training. Once he wrapped up, he exited the training center. The receptionist thanked him politely, then made his way to room 14 to tidy up. Curious, he checked the terminal to see how one of the so-called failed geniuses had performed and froze. There, at the top of the rankings, was Hale's name. He'd completed the wolf simulation in just 6 minutes and 37 seconds. What? Isn't that an international record? The man blurted out, his eyes wide. Frustrated, he slammed his foot into the terminal. How did that loser manage this? This junk machine must be glitching. Meanwhile, Hale strolled through the city with a light step, humming to himself. In his mind, a legend was already taking root. Back then, crafting his first circle had been a major challenge. What he read in the book was nothing like the basics he'd studied before. But now he could feel the mana flowing, his arms, legs, heart, even his brain, responding to his will. Still, there was one part of the book he couldn't quite grasp. The words were too vague, like a thought slipping just out of reach. In magical studies, there's a saying, every mage eventually slams into a wall. A moment where they hit their limit, unable to progress further. It was the same for all Eris. Sitting cross-legged on his bed, he shut his eyes. For now, he needed to focus on one thing, letting the mana circulate through every inch of his body, just like the book instructed. His concentration had to be absolute. But was that really all there was to it? When he snapped back to reality, he realized 10 hours had passed. 10 hours of nonstop mana circulation. Strangely, he felt no fatigue. The next morning, he showed up to class like usual, though a little drowsy. Sunshine spotted him, raised his arm, and smacked him hard on the back. You good, man? Hale flinched but didn't respond. All he could think about was maintaining this mana flow every single day. But keeping it going wasn't easy. Still, he was determined to adapt to this circle and master it quickly. After all, when he formed his second mana circle at the age of 12, everyone called him a prodigy. That was the moment his father's expectations began. Right now, he had only one mana circle, and it was in his brain. How could he move beyond that? To grow as a magician, he had to push past the wall of enlightenment. His father once said something to him back when he still believed in him. The ideal is just a set of chains. It's a lie built on human pride, an illusion we convince ourselves is real. That thought stuck with him. As he meditated, remembering those words, something shifted. He could feel it, the mana in his hands, his fingertips, his heart, and his mind. It was moving exactly how he wanted. A flame sparked in his palm. This wasn't perfection. It was imperfection, and in that imperfection, he found something powerful. Freedom. Freedom to imagine, to shape magic with no formulas, no boundaries. Interactive magic may have made spellcasting faster, but it forced every spell into a rigid structure. The Vader method, though, it was wild, free-flowing, pure thought. With just his imagination, he formed birds from fire, watching them circle the room. A grin crept across his face. Now, he could mold magic however he pleased. No rules, no limits. He clenched his fist, still smiling. Even though he was using only the first circle and it drained his stamina mercilessly, it didn't matter. What he gained was worth every drop of energy. If he could break through the wall of enlightenment, nothing would stop him. As a new day began, he sat quietly in class. That's when the teacher stepped in and called his name. "You have a visitor. Come with me." He closed his book and followed. "Your father's here to see you," the teacher said as they walked. As they reached the reception room, the teacher knocked. A voice from inside gave them permission to enter. The teacher opened the door. "I brought Hale," he announced. Inside, Shin turned to face his son. Hale greeted him, and with a simple wave of the hand, his father signaled the teacher to leave them alone. Once the door shut, the two sat across from each other. Inhyuk looked at him. "So, you're still attending classes. I take it you didn't accept the pill I sent?" Hale nodded. "That's right. I made some progress in magic lately." His father's expression tightened. "Are you still chasing those pointless dreams?" But Hale met his gaze calm and sure. "I'm going to become the greatest magician of this generation." Inhyuk stared at him in silence for a long moment. Then, with a sigh, he finally spoke. "You've already wasted an entire year. It's time to face the truth." He went on. "No matter how hard you train, even if you achieve something one day, as long as your body can't handle interactive magic, you'll never be a true mage. You still have talent, but stop chasing pointless dreams. Use that talent wisely. Focus on theory. That's the best you can do." But Hale didn't back down. "You told me once I would never give up on magic. I meant it." He rose from the couch. "Living a normal life doesn't suit me, especially not under your shadow." He clenched his fist. "What I want is to lead a house of Shin." His father looked at him for a moment before answering. "Becoming a great mage, leading a family of mages, those aren't things you accomplish just because you want them." "I'll prove it," Hale said firmly. "Oh," Inhyuk raised an eyebrow. "And how exactly do you plan to prove it? Barely scraping through exams? Being on the brink of expulsion?" "I'll place in the top 10 on the next test," Hale replied. "If I don't, I'll leave the academy. I'll go study theory, just like you want." Then, with a confident smile, he tapped his chest. "But if I succeed, I want you to acknowledge me as a mage and support me." Inhyuk exhaled deeply and closed his eyes. "Seems like your so-called progress has gone straight to your head." He pulled his cloak over his shoulders, turning to leave. "Just don't let this be all talk." Hale's smile faded. He watched his father walk away in silence. Days passed. Then, one morning, the teacher walked into class and announced that the format for the final exam had been finalized. The room buzzed as students murmured to each other, anxious to know what was coming. "You'll be facing each other one-on-one," the teacher said. "It'll be a tournament-style duel." Hale narrowed his eyes, and Sayuk threw him a smug glance from across the room. The teacher continued. "The matches will take place over 3 days. From the 16th round onward, official observers from the Magic Tower will be present. So give it everything you've got. That's all." Hale clenched his fist, his expression turning serious. "This is it. This is where I prove myself." During the break, the classroom was buzzing. Students huddled in groups, speculating and getting hyped. "Even people from the Magic Tower are coming," someone whispered. This just got real. Hale, as usual, kept to himself, observing the buzz around the academy. Everyone was fired up about the upcoming midterms, and for good reason. With representatives from the Magic Tower attending, the spotlight would be brighter than ever. The Magic Tower wasn't just any organization. Formed by a dozen of the world's strongest magicians, their influence rivaled that of entire nations. Every student dreamed of joining them. And now, the whole academy was buzzing with ambition. Then, out of nowhere, Sayuk strolled up to him with that familiar, arrogant grin. "So, how are you feeling?" he sneered, his tone mocking. Hale frowned slightly. Sayuk's taunts were nothing new. Annoying, sure, but the guy was still one of the top students in the second year. Sayuk leaned in, voice low and smug. "Looks like we're up against each other for the first duel. Can you already taste defeat?" He stepped closer, face nearly touching Hale's. "Relax. I'll make sure to set a new record. You know, for that incident 5 years ago." Hale let out a slow sigh and glanced at him, unimpressed. That incident, he remembered it clearly. 5 years ago, during the finals of the talent competition, Sayuk had gone up against him and lost miserably. The guy had burst into tears right there in the arena. Back then, he was branded a loser. But once Hale was labeled incompatible with interactive magic, Sayuk flipped the script and never let up on him. Now, Sayuk smirked again. "They say whoever fails gets expelled, right? Maybe I should knock you out early, save you from the embarrassment." His friends behind him laughed loudly. Hale didn't flinch. "So this clown is my first opponent? Perfect." This was his chance to shine. He wasn't going to let it slip. He looked up and smirked. "Why should I be scared of you?" Sayuk's face twitched. He clearly hadn't expected that. Around them, whispers started spreading among the other students. "This defective guy thinks he can beat me?" Sayuk snapped, his voice rising. "Know your place. Don't delude yourself." He tapped his temple, then jabbed a finger at Hale. "You're out of your mind." Hale took a breath, rubbed his chin, and smiled. 5 years ago, you ran your mouth back then too, and still got crushed. Guess some things never change. The words hit their mark. Sayuk froze, caught off guard. Hale chuckled. "Still salty over that loss, huh? You were crying like a baby in front of the whole arena. Pretty hard to forget that." "Shut up," Sayuk shouted, his anger boiling over. He grabbed Hale by the collar, his voice trembling with rage. "You're just a broken reject. Trash." Hale brushed Sayuk's hand off his collar and stared him down. "Seems like living in someone else's shadow has kept you from growing," he said coolly. "There will always be someone stronger, someone ready to crush you into the ground." He straightened his clothes and flashed a cocky smile. "A genius stays a genius. You'll find that out for yourself, soon enough. Be ready." Without waiting for a reply, Hale turned and walked away. Behind him, Sayuk stood frozen, teeth gnashing as he began to nervously bite his nails. "I'll burn that arrogant bastard to ashes and stomp on what's left," he muttered. The next day, the headlines hit the internet like wildfire. "Return of a fallen genius. Shin Hale. Redemption or final collapse?" Hale, towel draped over his head as he dried his hair, stared at the screen of his tablet with a grin. Every headline had his name plastered across it. Just as he thought, Sayuk's family had pulled strings to stir things up with the media. He could practically see Sayuk's furious expression in his mind, twisted with rage. Good, he thought. Let the world watch. The more eyes on me, the better. These midterms would be his stage, and he was going to show everyone exactly what a genius looks like. Just then, his phone rang. He answered casually. "Hey, Dad, you saw the article?" His father replied that he had. Hale smirked. "Don't let it get to you." In-hyuk's voice sharpened. "You provoked this, didn't you?" "I did," Hale said plainly. "I needed the attention." But his father wasn't impressed. "Just because I agreed to your conditions doesn't mean I believe in you. The House of Magic doesn't care about this nonsense. Your little media stunt only brings shame to our name." "You don't get it, do you?" Hale replied. "People already treat me like I've been cast out of the family." He ran a hand across the cover of his book and added quietly, "If I've already lost everything, then it doesn't matter." In-hyuk let out a sigh. "Maybe the damage isn't massive, but it is damage. Wherever you go, whatever you do, the name of our house follows you. That's reality." Hale's expression turned serious. "Of course I know, but all that noise, it's meaningless compared to what I'm about to do." In-hyuk asked, "And what does the house gain from your so-called success?" Hale didn't hesitate. "It gains me, the greatest mage the world's ever seen, born from the House of Magic, the strongest family head in our history. I'm going to become the greatest," he said with full conviction, "even by our standards." His father sank into a chair, letting out a quiet breath. "You've got ambition," he said at last, "just like the Tower Master, no matter what happens." "Thanks," Hale replied. But before he could say more, In-hyuk's tone hardened. "But if you keep dragging our name through the mud," he warned, "then be ready for the consequences." The call ended. Hale set the phone down on the table, then sat back on the bed. A sly smile formed on his lips. No turning back now. The day of the midterm exam finally arrived. The small stadium buzzed with energy. Spectators and reporters filled the stands, eyes fixed on the arena in the center. Hale stepped out under the open sky, rolling his wrist as he approached the battlefield. Across from him, Sayuk appeared, already wearing a smug grin. "How do you like that article?" he said mockingly. "One day, and boom, your name's everywhere." He chuckled under his breath. "You can't even cast spells right, and yet here you are, putting on a show. It's laughable." Hale smiled back. "The only one who'll be embarrassed here is you." Sayuk blinked, thrown off by the confidence in his voice. "Thanks, though," Hale added, tapping his chest. "You walked straight into my trap. You don't like me? Good. Then this will be a favor for you. I'll finish it quick. Just try not to cry." Sayuk snorted. "You're insane." Unfazed, Hale raised a finger and pointed directly at him. "I only need first circle spells to win this." That caught the crowd's attention. A wave of murmurs rippled through the stands. Meanwhile, Sayuk ground his teeth and bit at his fingernail, eyes twitching. "You dare run your mouth?" The instructor entered the arena, stepping between them. He raised a hand. "The first round of the second-year midterms begins now." The whistle blew. Hale stood firm, a confident grin on his face. Sayuk, already boiling, stepped forward with a snarl. "Die, you broken freak." His eyes lit up with energy, and flames surged from the system window in front of him, fusing into a massive fireball. It screamed toward Hale, but Hale dodged it effortlessly. "So that's his signature. Explosion," he noted. The chip on the back of Sayuk's head glowed, and another spell activated. A third circle one. Explosion again. This time, it hit the center of the arena with force, sending up a column of fire and shaking the ground. The roar echoed, and the stands erupted with camera clicks and gasps. Sayuk grinned. "Guess that's the end of your little act." But then the dust cleared, and there stood Hale, completely untouched. Sayuk's eyes went wide. "What? How? Why are you unharmed?" Panic flickered across his face as he quickly summoned 3 system windows. Without hesitation, he hurled 3 more fireballs straight at Hale. With unwavering focus, Hale raised his hand and calmly conjured a swirling water orb above his palm. In one smooth motion, he waved upward, forming a translucent barrier of water above him just in time to block the incoming fireballs. Sayuk's confidence began to unravel. What's going on? He thought, panic creeping in. His favorite spell, Explosion, had been deflected like it was nothing. While Hale moved gracefully across the arena, enjoying the rhythm of his magic, high above in a VIP chamber, someone watched with quiet intrigue. Kim Kan-jin, the master of the Blue Magic Tower, an 8th circle magician, sat in silence, eyes narrowed as he studied the young mage in the arena. "Strange," he murmured. "It's just first circle magic, yet he's casting it so effortlessly in seconds." A woman standing beside him turned to him with a frown. "I was wondering, why would the tower master himself put off everything just to attend a second-year exam? Did you know something about this kid's magic?" Kim Kan-jin shook his head. "No, I only saw an article, some talk about the return of a so-called genius. I came to see for myself." "So it's just coincidence?" she asked skeptically. "Even so, if word gets out that the Blue Tower Master is here, it's going to stir up a storm." He chuckled. "I'm well aware." As he spoke, he turned to the sound of sliding doors opening behind him. Another figure entered the room. Kim Kan-jin smiled and opened his arms. "You came too." Back in the arena, Hale easily blocked another volley of attacks. He sighed, then deflected the fire spells once more. Sayuk's frustration was boiling over. What the hell is happening? Sayuk thought in disbelief. How is he blocking third circle magic with first circle spells? He recalled the water barrier that stopped his flames dead and the blinding speed of Hale's casting. His reaction time was unreal. Hale glanced at him and grinned, wondering how I'm so fast. Sayuk flinched. "Shut up," he snapped, eyes wild. "Just die already." Enraged, he summoned 3 more system windows, releasing another barrage of fireballs. They collided midair and exploded violently, heat and smoke consuming the arena. Sayuk grinned nervously. "I knew it. That broken freak couldn't handle that. Not after talking big about one-circle spells." But before the smoke could even clear, Hale calmly flicked his fingers, once up then sharply down. In an instant, a powerful blast of wind roared to life, cutting through the smoke and rocketing straight towards Sayuk at blinding speed. Sayuk barely dodged the attack, spinning around in shock. When did he even form that wind spear? He wondered, eyes darting back to Hale, who calmly brushed dust off his clothes. It didn't make sense. His strike didn't leave a mark. Why is he completely fine? Frustrated and unsure of what to do next, Sayuk lashed out, cursing. You really gonna stick with just first circle spells? He growled. In response, Hale silently conjured another wind spear, aiming it directly at him. Sayuk reacted quickly, throwing up a shield in front of himself. Feeling a surge of confidence, he smirked. Is that it? Just because you can cast a little faster, you think you're some big shot now. But he hadn't seen the spear forming above. A split second later, it came crashing down, slamming into the ground at his feet and grazing his shoulder. Clutching the wound, he cursed again. When did that thing get behind me? As Hale moved his hand with eerie precision, Sayuk froze. What the hell are you doing now? He barked. From the audience, the VIPs leaned in with curiosity. Hale raised a finger, gathering streams of wind at its tip. You don't get it yet? He said. Let me show you again. The wind formed into a bird, and with a flick, he sent it gliding into the air. The bird circled the arena gracefully, catching Sayuk off guard. That's a wind spear? Since when do spears multiply? It's not supposed to work this way, Hale admitted. But for me, it does. As he finished speaking, 3 more wind birds appeared. Try blocking these, he said casually. All 4 shot forward at once. Sayuk quickly summoned a barrier. 3 of the birds hit it and burst apart. Confident, he grinned. Still just a first circle spell. Easy, but he forgot the 4th. It curved around and slammed into his back. Pain shot through him. One of them changed direction. You can think about the details later, Hale called out. But right now, you can't afford to lose focus. With that, he extended both arms. More birds formed in the air around him. The next wave had begun. Sayuk took several steps back, calculating fast. First, get out of range. You must have a limit. If I stay far enough, these weird attacks can't reach me. A confident smirk spread across his face. MC gave a small nod and said Sayuk had reached a smart conclusion. Bringing his hands together, he stretched them toward the sky. Moments later, a breeze formed above Sayuk. Hidden within it were wind birds. As the current descended, Sayuk grew visibly tense. Then, without warning, one of the birds materialized inches from his face. Kim Kanjin stared, stunned. He's not just fast with his casting. He's merging spells and redirecting them mid-flight. Turning to Inhyuk, he asked, What kind of magic is this? But Hale's father said nothing, eyes locked on his son. As the head of a renowned magician family and an 8th circle wizard, he stayed silent. The woman beside Kim Kanjin chimed in, agreeing. Hale's magic doesn't follow normal rules. It ignores the spell's source code completely. She explained, the source code of a spell is like a blueprint, laying out fixed parameters like radius, speed, limits. For example, the spell Reverse Cutter has a maximum radius of 37.4 meters and travels at 116 kilometers per hour. It can only change its path once after being activated. Go beyond 38 meters, and the spell simply won't hit the target. It's like a rule book. What's written is what works. No exceptions. Because of that, battles between modern wizards are like mental duels. Predicting your opponent and reacting quickly is everything. It's like using fixed skills in a game. Strategy trumps raw power. But Hale? His style completely broke those conventions. Right then, the arena trembled as a wind spear, in the form of a bird, slammed into Sayuk with force, cracking the ground beneath him. Panting, Sayuk sat up and muttered, I can't believe I lost to someone using basic first circle magic. Hale walked up slowly. Thought my spells were weak, didn't you? He said. He crouched across from him, calmly summoned a sphere of water, and held it up. Even a regular pen can be used to kill. Don't you think? Fear crept into Sayuk's face. What is that? First circle water magic, Hale answered simply. Then he guided the stream towards Sayuk's mouth. It filled him, then rose to envelop his entire head. Sayuk began choking. Hale stood up. The Academy's combat uniform has a built-in barrier. The safety zone, he said, looking down at him. But that doesn't help you now, does it? Sayuk collapsed, gasping with his mouth wide open, only to choke as water surged into his lungs. He thrashed, trying to clear it out, while voices from the stands began murmuring, reacting to the brutal scene. After a brief pause, MC turned to the instructor. I think the result's clear enough, he said calmly. Or should I keep going? The instructor immediately blew the whistle. Match over. Shin Hale is the winner. Sayuk was helped to his feet and escorted off the field. Hale followed behind, glancing at his clenched fist. I'd forgotten this feeling, he thought. The feeling of reclaiming who I am as a mage. Incredible. Meanwhile, Kim walked through the hallway, recalling the moment he used his ability to peer into Hale's magic. A supernova? He wondered, his curiosity growing. A wide grin spread across his face, his glowing red eyes narrowing slightly. He needed to know more about Hale. Back at the arena, Sunshine rushed over, beaming with excitement. "That was insane," he cheered, throwing his arms around Hale. "Congrats on the win." Hale looked a little caught off guard. "What kind of training have you been doing behind my back?" Sunshine exclaimed. "That was wild." He flailed his arms, mimicking Hale's moves with exaggerated energy. "You were making wind spears fly like crazy. The way those spells unfolded." Hale chuckled. "You really want to know?" Sunshine leaned in, ear first. Hale leaned closer too, grinning. "It's a secret," he whispered. Later, Hale glanced down at his phone and turned to his friend with a smirk. "Hey, did you see this?" Sunshine looked over. "What is it?" "They interviewed me after the match," Hale replied. "Curious what I said about my magic." The clip played, showing the moment his post-match interview began. The reporter's questions came fast. That instant casting. "How did you do it?" And the way the spear changed direction and shape. "Was it a spell combo?" Hale just smiled at the flood of curiosity. Then, suddenly, Kim Kanjin appeared. "I'll answer that," he said, stepping forward. Hale's eyes widened in surprise. The man introduced himself with a calm confidence. "I saw your match. Very impressive," he said as he stepped closer and gave Hale a light hug. "In my opinion," he added, "you used fourth circle memorization magic." The reporters immediately jumped in, asking Kim Kanjin what he meant. In response, he calmly summoned a flame in his hand as a demonstration. Hale raised an eyebrow, intrigued by the sheer presence of an eighth circle mage showing his strength so casually. The reporters watched in awe as Kim Kanjin pointed to his temple. "This spell is based on memorization," he explained. "If someone knows the structure of a spell by heart, they can activate it almost instantly." Someone in the crowd asked, "Then why isn't this powerful magic used more often?" Kim Kanjin smiled. "There's a catch," he said. "You can only use spells that are 3 circles below your current level." He turned toward Hale. "Isn't that right?" Hale responded with a small smile and nodded. "I spent a long time trying to avoid using the word wait when describing her style," he thought, "but in this case, it fits perfectly." Another reporter jumped in. "So, does that mean Hale has reached the 4th circle? Is that why he can use memorization?" Kim Kanjin placed both hands on Hale's shoulders and nodded. "Exactly. It's obvious, isn't it?" Camera flashes lit up the space around them as the interview hit social media. In no time, headlines exploded with breaking news. Hale sets a new record, reaching the 4th circle at such a young age. Even a master of the Blue Tower confirmed it after watching a clip from the interview. Watching the video, Sunshine turned to his friend. "So, you're already a 4th circle mage?" He blinked, stunned, but kept watching. Then came the question that had everyone buzzing. "How do you explain bypassing the source code of spells?" Kim Kanjin froze, caught off guard. He gave a nervous smile. Clearly, he had no answer. That's when Hale stepped in. "Actually, it's pretty simple," he said. "You just modify the formula itself." Kim Kangin's eyes widened. "That's insane," he thought. "It'd be like strapping airplane wings to a car and expecting it to fly, just because you feel like it." He glanced at Hale again, a subtle grin tugging at the corner of his mouth. There's no way that should be possible unless he's incompatible with artificial intelligence. What kind of future does that mean for him? Right then, Hale raised a hand, and a swarm of glowing butterflies formed from magic, fluttering gracefully through the air. "I call it modified magic," he said. Kangin's eyes lit up red, and he hid a stunned smile behind his hand. "This is a turning point. From today forward, the entire magical world is going to change." After watching the interview, Sunshine looked over with a skeptical expression. "Modified magic? That's what you want me to believe." Hale just shrugged. "Believe whatever you want." Sunshine gave him a friendly pat on the shoulder. "Would you believe it if you were me?" he asked. Then, with a grin, he added, "Anyway, I'm still hyped about your win." He checked the time and stretched. "I should head back to the dorm." "So early?" Hale asked, raising a brow. "I've got a tough opponent tomorrow," Sunshine called over his shoulder as he walked off. Curious, Hale wondered who he'd be facing. The next day, he returned to the arena. Sitting on one knee, drenched in sweat, Sunshine looked up at his opponent across the field. Hale watched from the stands, thinking, wait, is that the tough opponent he mentioned? Adela Starrett hovered above the arena, rising with the help of her spell moon bullet. She was a descendant of the French Starrett family, part of the House of the Divine Guardians, a legendary Korean lineage formed from the union of two prestigious magical bloodlines. Hale studied her intently. Her magic's different, he thought. The House of the Divine Guardians had uniquely altered their spells, adding a rare moon attribute. A glowing magic circle spread beneath Adela's feet as the wind gathered into it. Sensing danger, Sunshine quickly raised a barrier, but with a single effortless motion, she shattered it. The instructor raised a hand and blew the whistle. Match over. Adela wins, letting her hair fall freely. She walked calmly to the edge of the arena while the crowd buzzed with whispers. Hale's eyes didn't leave her. That glow, it's the signature of the Divine Guardians, born from blending light and dark attributes, just like moonlight. Their spells had unique power, range, and characteristics, and none of them appeared in the standard spell databases. Crossing his arms, Hale frowned. No wonder she's so hard to go up against. Then he noticed her gaze was fixed on him. He blinked, unsure. Was she just looking at me? Later, when the matches ended, Hale dropped by to check on his dejected friend. Handing him a bottle of water, he patted his back. You still did great. Sunshine let out a groan. Of all the opponents, I had to get Adela. Seriously unlucky. But he managed a small smile. At least I won my second match. Hale nodded in agreement, and Sunshine sighed. So that means your next opponent is her. Before he could even finish the sentence, Adela appeared behind them. Sunshine, she said coolly, you did well. That was a great match. He laughed nervously, scratching the back of his head. Thanks. I learned a lot. Then Adela turned her gaze to Hale, sharp and dismissive. He met her eyes without flinching. So, she said, you think you become a real wizard now. Her voice was cold. I hope you'll help me remember why I even came to this academy. They had history. The House of Magicians and the House of Divine Guardians had deep ties, which meant Hale and Adela had seen each other often at formal gatherings. If their relationship could be summed up in one word, it would be rivals. Adela had even left her studies in France just to enroll at Obelisk and defeat him. But when Hale was labeled incompatible with interactive magic, she cut all contact. In her eyes, he'd become trash. The rival she longed to surpass had simply vanished. Hale gave a smirk. Don't count on me being much of a challenge. Adela turned on her heel. We'll see soon enough, she said and walked off. Sunshine glanced at Hale, clearly uneasy. You okay with this? Hale blinked. What do you mean? Are you seriously asking me that? Sunshine blurted out. Your next opponent is Adela Starrett. That stopped Hale in his tracks. Wait, what? The next day, the stadium buzzed with anticipation. Adela stood on the field, calmly warming up her wrist. The instructor checked his watch. In the stands, a student muttered. Where is he? Maybe he ran off. Guess all that modified magic talk was just for show. Yeah, another chimed in. He knew he couldn't beat Adela. That's why he chickened out. The instructor exhaled and shook his head. Time's up. According to the rules, Adela Starrett wins by default. But just then, wait. Hale's voice rang out across the stadium as he sprinted into the arena, adjusting his uniform. He came to a stop, catching his breath and smiling sheepishly. Sorry I'm late. The instructor threw his arms up. Where were you? But realizing it didn't matter anymore, he waved dismissively. Forget it. No break for you. You're being punished for showing up late. The instructor gave the signal. Both of you, take your positions. Hale focused, centering himself, while Adela folded her fingers, eyeing him. So, why were you late? With his eyes closed, Hale answered calmly. Nothing special. Then, in one fluid motion, he waved his hand, activating Infinity Circle. Just had a few things to prepare. Adela narrowed her eyes. Prepare? For this fight? Well, he said, opening his eyes and smiling slightly. You're strong. Wouldn't make sense to come in unprepared, right? I promise, it'll be a good match. Adela studied him carefully. Is he saying something changed since yesterday? She could feel it. The Hale standing before her now wasn't the same one from the day before. Could this be his real potential? Hale raised his hand toward her. You should give it everything from the start. The instructor raised his hand. Begin. Adela acted instantly. A golden sphere appeared above her head. Then, shaping her fingers into a gun, she cast Flame Revolver. Fire flared at her fingertips, and with a sudden surge, bullets of flame blasted from 3 glowing magic circles in front of her. Hale raised his arm and swept wind across his body, deflecting the shots with sharp precision. Without missing a beat, Adela clenched her fist and summoned a burst of power. A spell exploded across the ground. Sharp needles burst through deep cracks in the arena floor. Hale leapt back, dodging the spikes, and then vaulted upward. Spotting her chance, Adela launched after him. "You can't dodge midair," she shouted. As she closed in, she summoned a new magic circle behind her and began casting an air strike. The spell was designed to hit targets suspended in the air, a deadly combo even for experienced mages. That should be it, she thought. But Hale only grinned. "That's what most people think," he mused. "But I got something else in mind." At the last moment, he flipped midair and landed squarely on a barrier floating just above the arena. Gasps filled the stands. "He created a barrier in the air," someone shouted. Even Adela looked stunned. "That's impossible. Did he just use a reversible barrier as a foothold?" Despite the shock, she couldn't help but acknowledge it. "Hale, you still have that incredible magic intuition." At that moment, Hale's thoughts turned inward. The secret attribute of the Divine Guardian family, it's the moon. To stand a chance, he knew he'd have to throw everything into this fight. He raised his hand and thought, "Then I'll borrow the power of the sun itself." Positioning himself with the sun at his back, he waited. As the clouds parted slightly, a beam of intense light pierced through, shining directly into Adela's eyes. She flinched, momentarily blinded, and quickly realized he was preparing an attack. Gritting her teeth, she stretched her arms forward and summoned a massive shield, a glowing cage of protection. In the blink of an eye, Hale soared into the air, wind swirling around him as he formed a blade from air itself. Then, descending like a strike of lightning, he slashed at her barrier with full force. "First circle wind spell," he noted through clenched teeth, and she blocked it with a third circle defensive spell. She's careful. The shield repelled his strike, sending him flying backward. Landing hard, Hale brushed his hand across the ground as if by instinct, activating another spell. Adela, seeing an opening, prepared to counterattack. But the moment she shifted her stance, she froze. Her right foot wouldn't move. Startled, she looked down and saw stones locking her in place. An earth-binding spell? She thought, stunned. But when? Then it clicked. When he landed, he touched the ground. He cast it then? That fast. I couldn't even follow. As she scrambled to raise a shield in front of herself, Hale was already circling to her side, his movements fluid. With a smooth gesture, he conjured a glowing magic sphere above his palm. Adela quickly shattered the stones around her ankle, freeing herself, but she was a second too late. Hale had already summoned 3 more projectiles. They shimmered, shifting into the shapes of dolphins made of pure energy. With a flick of his finger, they shot forward. She threw up another barrier. The dolphins slammed into it, hard but didn't break through. Adela allowed herself a small smile. "Maybe this won't be as hard as I thought." She recalled Kim Kangen's explanation of memorization magic. If Hale really is a fourth circle mage, then he should only be able to use first circle spells. A confident grin spread across her face. "There's no way he can beat me with that level of magic alone." But in her focus, she never noticed the birds drifting behind her, silent, hidden in the sunlight. A wind spear dropped from above, fast and sharp. It slammed into the ground just behind her. Adela was caught completely off guard. She had no idea when he'd managed to cast that spell. Maybe he'd hidden a modified version of the air spear in her blind spot, using the sun to his advantage. The blow was strong enough to knock the wind out of her, sending her crashing to the ground. As her opponent walked toward her, he remarked that it had been so long, she must have forgotten exactly who she was dealing with. He said her name, and she scowled in frustration. Elsewhere, Kim Kangen's assistant was analyzing the battle. He noted how the guy's combat instincts were beyond anything they had anticipated. Every move, from the delayed strike to the well-timed dodge and the simultaneous casting of Earthbind, it all seemed meticulously planned. He dodged in midair, forcing Adela into a reactive strike. Then he used the barrier as a springboard to launch himself higher, positioning his back to the sun, making it harder for her to track his movements. In that blinding moment, he recalled a complex spell from memory and triggered it, summoning wind spears the instant he landed. He used the airflow to divert her attention, while at the same time, he cast Earthbind under the guise of a simple landing. Just as she shifted to avoid the sun's glare, a preset wind spear hit her squarely from behind. After breaking down the sequence of the battle, he turned to Inhyuk with a confident grin, calling himself the strongest first circle mage, a title he'd only recently earned, but one that now seemed fitting. In didn't respond to the remark. Instead, he simply said, "Watch closely." By then, Adela was back on her feet, locking eyes with her opponent. In observed his son and admitted, despite the advantage, he hadn't been able to land a finishing blow. The fight wasn't over yet. Adela hadn't played her trump card. Placing her hand over her chest, Adela praised him. It was impressive, almost nostalgic. But now she was done holding back. From here on, she'd fight for real. Her actions confirmed her words. The MC widened his stance, grounding himself as he sensed her power shift. Everything around her began to glow. He knew immediately. This was moon attribute magic, unique to the Divine Guardian family. A halo formed above Adela, depicting every phase of the moon, while the ground beneath her cracked open. The blinding light made him shield his face. Each moon phase started releasing streams of magic. At that moment, In stood from his seat. Kim Kanjin asked if he was leaving already, but In just replied, "It's over. There's nothing left to see." Suddenly, startled voices erupted from the crowd. Both of them turned toward the stands. The Tower Master's assistant muttered in disbelief, "This can't be." Kim Kanjin let out a nervous chuckle, while Sunchan just gaped, speechless. Adela froze, eyes wide, whispering impossible. Behind Hale, a glowing magic circle flared into existence. He extended his hand, casting Flame Volcano. His opponent gasped, "That's second circle magic." Hale smiled confidently and replied, "Sorry for being late. I needed time to prepare." Adela narrowed her eyes. But memorization only lets you use first circle spells. "Did you jump all the way to the fifth circle?" He gave no answer, just a knowing smile. His thoughts drifted back to the night before. Alone in his dorm, he had stared at the strange book, knowing full well that first circle magic wouldn't cut it against someone like Adela. Not only was her magic superior, even his fighting style didn't match up. Originally, he planned to challenge her only once he'd grown stronger. He flipped through the book's pages, thinking if I can pull this off, I might just stand a chance. The instructions were simple. Pour mana into the formula, and the formula would reveal a new layer of reality. He was intrigued. What did that mean exactly? Steeling himself, he reached for the book, pushing past his hesitation. As his hand neared the page, sparks crackled and golden light surged out. He shielded his eyes, recognizing that glow. It's happening again. The light intensified, engulfing everything, until he vanished from the room completely. When he opened his eyes, he was somewhere else, a small space packed with books from floor to ceiling. He scanned the room, confused. "Where am I?" That's when a voice called out from behind. A girl greeted him. "Welcome to the page of the first trial." She introduced herself as Alpha, the guide of this trial. He didn't understand at first. What trial? But Alpha walked closer and said this was the beginning. Everything hidden within this page would now unfold. Then it hit him. He remembered the magic circle printed in the book and blurted out, "Wait, there's a trial inside the book? This isn't some teleportation spell. This is an actual space inside it." The idea thrilled him. He grinned. Alpha nodded and explained this was a test, to examine his intentions as a chosen receiver. The full details would be given at the start of the challenge. If he passed, the next section, pages 18 to 31, would unlock, revealing the secrets of second circle magic. Hale rubbed his chin, trying to make sense of it all. So, to unlock the next circle of magic, he had to complete this trial. Alpha asked if he was ready to begin. With a confident look, he told her he was more than ready. She gave a slight bow and replied that she understood. Then, lifting into the air, she began to fade, her body breaking into glowing fragments. With a smile, she announced the start of the test as she vanished. Watching her disappear into shimmering particles, Hale was stunned. She looked completely human, but clearly she wasn't. She was some kind of magical construct. Then, a calm male voice echoed through the room, explaining the details of the trial. Hale recognized it instantly. It was his teacher. A glowing crystal appeared in his palm, and the voice identified it as an elemental, a gem filled with unstable, chaotic mana from various natural elements. His task? Bring order to the mana within. Hale stared at the gem, thinking over the challenge. Elemental stones were notoriously difficult to work with. The 4 basic elements inside were jumbled together, creating pure chaos. Sorting them out wasn't simple. It was like trying to separate grains of sand, salt, sugar, and pepper all mixed into one bowl. This wasn't just about power. It required precision. Only someone well-versed in the mind technique could manage it. But the idea of it fascinated him. The complexity, the challenge, it lit a spark in him. With a grin, he began. Activating the mind technique, Hale peered into the gem. He could see the 4 mana types swirling inside like a storm. Slowly, carefully, he created channels to separate them. Every ounce of strength and focus went into keeping the flow steady. Bit by bit, the elements started shifting into different parts of the gem, but the effort was overwhelming. The moment his control slipped, a shockwave burst out, flinging him backward into a bookshelf. Gritting his teeth, he realized that even the smallest fluctuation could trigger another blast. He had to be flawless. The mana was so thoroughly tangled that even seeing a path forward felt impossible. But Hale wasn't about to give up. He had an idea. No matter how long it took, he'd see it through. Again and again, he focused, separated, restarted. Every minor mistake forced him to start over. Hours passed, or maybe longer. He lost track of time completely. And then, success. The elemental flows aligned perfectly. The chaotic mana was sorted and stabilized. The gem glowed softly in his palm. His teacher's voice returned, congratulating him on completing the trial. Hale smiled. He had mastered the mind technique, and with it, the second circle of resonance was now within his grasp. More of the book's secrets were about to open up to him. When his teacher finished explaining everything, Hale opened his eyes and found himself back in bed. He was in his room again. Glancing toward the book, he noticed the pages shifting, the old text disappearing and forming into new content. A smile spread across his face. It was finally time to form his second magic circle. His eyes sharpened with determination. The competition was just around the corner, and he knew he had to master a second circle spell before it began. Meanwhile, in the arena, Adela cast Orion. Streams of star-like magic lit up the air, swirling above her opponent. With a gentle motion, she drew more power from the moonlight, intensifying its glow as it fell upon Hale. Watching from the sidelines, Sunshine muttered a curse. This was it, he thought. This was Hale's limit. Adela, confident in her victory, tossed her hair and turned toward the edge of the arena. It's over, she said to herself, though her expression darkened for a moment. He had grown so much so quickly. Who exactly is he? But that was all in the past. The genius she had once pursued no longer existed. She was ready to walk away, until something fell off. She stopped. A strange sound echoed behind her. Alarmed, she spun around and shouted, "What's that?" In that instant, Hale activated resonance. His second circle had awakened. One of his eyes flashed, and a red-black flame surged into his palms. A magic circle appeared behind him, glowing with intensity. He began merging 2 circles of infinity, and behind him, enormous spectral hands materialized, moving with his will. Hale's eyes snapped open, locked in fierce focus. The Tower Master and his father were frozen in shock, eyes glued to him. The entire arena went dead silent. Even Adela stood frozen, unsure of what she was seeing. Then, Hale raised his hand, sweeping aside the powerful strands of magical energy radiating from her halo. He pointed straight at her. Fiery volcano. Adela's eyes widened. She quickly stepped back, casting layer upon layer of protective spells, but Hale's resonance surged to full power. From his magic circle, a massive cannon formed, glowing with destructive energy. Adela panicked. There was no way she could block this. She waved her hand, dismissing the shields entirely. They scattered into tiny embers. And then she smiled. "He's back," she said softly. And once again, he would be her target. Just then, the cannon roared to life, unleashing a barrage of fireballs toward Adela. A deafening boom followed, and the instructor instinctively shielded his face from the blast of hot wind. When the dust finally settled, Adela was swaying, clearly struggling to stay upright. Everyone held their breath. She stumbled and then collapsed. A few seconds passed before Hale, drained and breathless, dropped to one knee. The instructor raised his hand and declared the duel over. Hale had won. The stands erupted in cheers. Inhyuk, watching from above, turned away from the window. The Tower Master asked if he was heading out again. Inhyuk gave a quiet smile and said he had duties to attend to. Kim Kanjin watched him go, smiling in understanding. Then he turned his gaze back to the window, where Hale stood basking in the crowd's roar. "He really is a man of his word, isn't he?" Kim Kanjin murmured. After the match, Hale returned to the waiting room. Shrugging off his jacket, he sank into a seat, completely drained. The resonance, the second circle of infinity, had fully synchronized with the first in his mind, amplifying his magical power. Moon attribute magic. It was a hybrid, a delicate blend of light's reach and darkness's force. But it had a flaw. If too much darkness was added, the destructive range would shrink drastically. That's how he managed to counter the halo. The moon magic, after all, was a secret technique of the Divine Guardian family. Learning it wasn't simple. But back then, just a glance at its formula had been enough, thanks to his mastery of mana control. The resonance circle had let him dissect the spell's structure with extreme accuracy. And that level of control, it all started with the elemental stone. Without that trial, without understanding how to tame the chaotic mana inside it, defeating Adela would have been nothing more than a dream. As he sat there, catching his breath, something caught his attention. The other students were all staring in the same direction, their eyes full of awe. Turning his head, Hale saw him, the tower master, adjusting his glasses as he walked calmly through the crowd. He gave a relaxed smile, then called out to Hale. Hale jumped to his feet, surprised but thrilled, and greeted him quickly. The tower master said he came to talk. They moved to a quieter space, sat down across from each other, and the real conversation began. Kim Kanjin began by apologizing for interrupting and remarked that Hale must be exhausted after such an intense match. He had watched the entire duel, and it had been nothing short of extraordinary. Hale thanked him, and Kim Kanjin adjusted his glasses before cutting to the chase. "Tell me," he asked, "have you already reached the fifth circle?" Hale stiffened at the question, but stayed silent. He had just used a second circle spell during the fight. Any seasoned mage would assume that meant he'd advanced to the fifth circle. And the master of the magic tower wasn't just anyone. Of course he'd come with questions. With a slightly strained smile, Hale finally replied, "No, I haven't reached the fifth circle." Kim Kanjin grinned knowingly. "I figured as much. But then, how did you use second circle magic?" Hale hesitated. "Would you believe me if I said I modified the spell?" Kim Kanjin tilted his head, thinking, "Are you talking about the modification you mentioned in that interview?" Hale jumped at the chance. "Exactly. That's the one." Internally, he knew he had no choice but to go along with it. If the truth got out that an 18-year-old had reached the fifth circle, it would turn the whole world upside down. Worse, if he ever used third circle magic publicly, the scrutiny would only get worse. For now, it was safer to keep it under wraps. Kim Kanjin leaned back, thoughtful. "Spell modification. Huh? Interesting, but how does that explain the use of second circle magic?" He stared at Hale, waiting for a solid answer. Nervously, Hale replied, "I improved the memorization method itself." That stopped Kim Kanjin in his tracks. He stood from the couch, laughing with genuine surprise. "You mean it could be done?" he said, walking up to Hale, rubbing his chin thoughtfully. "That's incredible." But in the next moment, his expression shifted completely. His eyes turned a deep, glowing red. Then, smiling again, he placed a hand on Hale's shoulder and said, "I'm impressed. Who would have thought the limitations of such a basic technique could be surpassed?" Hale mumbled a thank you, but his voice was tight. When he looked up and met Kim Kangin's glowing red eyes, a chill ran through him. Those eyes weren't just observing. They were piercing, as if trying to read his very soul. The atmosphere thickened. Hale felt a creeping unease crawl over him. Then, just as suddenly, Kim Kanjin smirked and stepped away. "There's no trace of a fifth circle mana structure inside you," he said casually. "So it seems your claim was true after all." He headed toward the door. "I should go explain all this to the reporters," he added. Then he pointed to his face and said with a grin, "My red eyes will be the proof." Hale stood up from his seat, thanked Kim Kanjin, and wished him a safe trip home. He gave a respectful bow, and once the door clicked shut behind the tower master, Hale let out a deep sigh. "Who would have guessed the tower master's red eyes would end up backing me up?" he muttered. It was said the Blue Magic Tower's master could see a person's very essence with those eyes, recognized as the most accurate magic detector in the world. But somehow, he had passed the inspection without issue. Baitinio's magic style was a tightly guarded secret, and exposing it now wasn't an option. It was time for the next competition. As always, Hale had come out on top. After a quick glance at his defeated opponent, he started toward the waiting room, but was stopped halfway. "Wait," Adela called out from behind. Surprised, he turned around. "I thought you'd be out cold for at least 4 more hours," he said. "How are you already up?" "I'm fine," she replied calmly. "What's up?" he asked. A bit hesitant, she said, "If you don't mind, I'd like to go over our match. Not right now, though. The final's coming up. If you're tired, we can do it later." With a small smile, Hale answered, "I'm not tired. We can talk now, and I wouldn't mind analyzing the fight either." Her eyes lit up, and she eagerly followed him toward the waiting room, thinking that breaking down every move and strategy from their match would be a great learning opportunity. One day, she wanted to be on his level too. As they walked, Hale scratched the back of his head and thought to himself, her aura is intense, even from behind. Meanwhile, over at the Shin family subsidiary office, Shin Seiya, the eldest daughter of a prominent magic family, was watching the news in disbelief. Her brother's face filled the screen. "I thought he was done for," she shouted, scowling. She turned to her older brother, furious. "Are we really going to let Hale just walk away like this?" Shin Jihan gave her a calm smirk. "And what exactly do you expect me to do?" She snapped. "What happens if he comes back to the family? Do you remember what it was like just a year ago? I can't go through that again." He sighed. "Relax. A year ago, sure, people called him a genius. But now, he can barely use second circle magic in a real fight. It's nothing. Didn't you see his matches?" she asked, her concerns starting to grow. Jihan pulled her into a light hug, trying to settle her nerves. "Listen carefully," he said. "His opponents, so far, just regular students, barely touched the third circle. Even if he took on a rookie at the fourth circle, they'd still hold their own. But he's got a fatal flaw," he added. "He's completely unfit for interactive magic. Even if he's found a workaround or dug up some old, obscure technique, his level's nowhere near what you'd expect from a real fourth circle mage." Seiya felt a twinge of guilt for not noticing sooner, but she didn't let it show. Calmly, she said she had been thinking the same thing. No matter what he did, he was still just crawling in the dirt. "Trash stays trash," she muttered under her breath, chewing her nail with nervous energy. Then she voiced the real fear gnawing at her. "What if he somehow threatens my position as the heir?" Jihan looked at her, then suddenly crushed his coffee cup with a burst of magic. "Then we'll deal with him." Meanwhile, back at the academy, the competition rolled into the evening hours. Another student collapsed to the ground in exhaustion, and the instructor stepped forward to declare the result. The winner of the midterm competition, Shin Hale. The crowd erupted. Standing tall in the arena, Hale spread his arms, flames gently fading from around him. Cheers echoed from the stands, full of excitement and admiration. He beat artificial intelligence with just ancient magic. He's a real genius. Basking in the moment, Hale gave a wave to the students. But then, someone dashed into the arena, his friend, shouting at the top of his lungs, "You're the best." Reaching him, he grabbed Hale by the shoulders and shook him with joy. "Now everyone knows how strong you really are." Okay, calm down," Hale said with a laugh. Just then, a group of students approached from behind, though their expressions were far less cheerful. One of them muttered, "Without his ancient tricks, he's nothing." Ignoring the tension, their instructor walked up and congratulated Hale with a proud smile. "As your homeroom teacher, I'm proud of you." Sunchan chuckled and said, "Then how about throwing a party to celebrate your star student?" Hale sighed. "Please don't start." But the man waved him off. "Come on, I insist. You deserve it." Sunchan grinned and threw an arm around him, pumping a fist in the air. "All right, everyone, get ready for a party." Just as quickly, Hale slipped away and said awkwardly, "Actually, I can't. I've got an important meeting." Sunchan froze, disappointed. "What? You're ditching your own celebration?" Hale winked. "Sorry, it really is important." He turned and jogged out of the arena, shouting an apology over his shoulder. The teacher gave him a supportive pat as he passed. After changing clothes and packing what he needed, Hale stepped outside. "This meeting, I can't miss it." He spotted a car waiting nearby, and the moment he saw who stood by it, he froze for a second, tense. He walked up slowly. The driver bowed and greeted him with a respectful tone. "Young master, I've been waiting." The MC stepped closer, and the man waiting for him gestured toward the car, saying the family head was expecting him. He'd be escorting him to the mansion. By the time they arrived, night had fully fallen. As Hale stepped out of the car, he found himself once again facing the towering doors of his family's estate. He glanced around. Has it really been a year already? A year since he was branded a disgrace. Since he defied his cold-hearted father, joined the academy, and stayed in the dorms all this time, banned from setting foot in the mansion. Pushing open the doors, he walked into the grand entrance hall. Everything looked just like he remembered. Not a single thing had changed. He continued down the hallway and paused in front of an enormous set of doors, his father's office. He stood there for a moment, frozen. Just the memory of his father's strict gaze made his nerves spike. But then he steeled himself. It's time. I'm finally back. He knocked. From inside, his father's voice called out, granting him entry. Hale stepped in. It's been a long time, he said, bowing in greeting before raising his eyes with quiet confidence. His father gestured for him to sit. Once Hale took the seat across from him, the man spoke, saying he had long since accepted Hale's failure. Rising, he circled the desk, walking toward him. He criticized Hale's slow manifestation speed, noting how his magic would fall apart the moment he lost focus. His spellcasting was clumsy and unrefined. Standing behind him, he said that despite his apparent success, he'd shown himself to be a failure. No talent, no future. Still, others saw promise in him. That's why he planned to steer him toward a scientific path. Not because he believed in him, but because he had no expectations. This return, he assumed, was just the desperate flailing of someone who had already lost. Hale calmly responded that he understood. His father continued, saying that when he read the article, he figured it'd be another moment of humiliation, one more fall that would force Hale to wake up. But instead, he shattered expectations. Not only had he overcome his incompatibility, but he'd even developed his own magical variant. Turning to him with a rare smile, his father acknowledged his victory. You've earned the title of a true sorcerer. At those words, Hale's eyes went wide. Then, unable to contain himself, he shot to his feet and thanked his father loudly, his voice echoing through the room. Inhyuk told him that from now on, the family would fully back him. He could request anything he needed for his studies, and all the bans tied to the Shin mansion were officially lifted. As the rightful heir, he was free to use his abilities to bring honor to the family name. Hale lit up with a smile, but his father's tone suddenly turned sharp. With a stern gaze, Inhyuk stepped closer and issued a final warning. If Hale failed again, or even if he plateaued for too long, he would personally destroy his magic circle. He reached out and tapped his son's forehead, the gesture heavy with threat. Hale clenched his fists. Of course, he thought, this is exactly what I expected. The overwhelming pressure from an eighth-circle sorcerer still shook him to the core, but this was his final shot. Despite the fear, he answered firmly. He understood. His father returned to his chair and asked him plainly, what was his goal? Hale paused, unsure what he meant. Inhyuk reminded him. Didn't he once talk about leading the Shin family? But now, he was still far behind the other heirs. Hale looked him in the eye and said that nothing had changed. He wasn't giving up his claim to be the next head of the family. That was final. First, though, he would make every person here recognize him. Inhyuk asked how he planned to do that. Hale's gaze dropped to the newspaper on the desk. He answered, the World Magic Olympiad was in 2 months. The most elite young magicians from around the world would be there, and he would bring home the gold. The Olympiad, open only to students under 20, was an annual battlefield for rising stars. Its prestige rivaled that of even professional tournaments. Inhyuk pointed out that the best result their nation had ever achieved was a silver medal, earned by the master of the Blue Magic Tower himself. Did Hale truly understand how absurd it was to aim for gold? But Hale didn't flinch. He confirmed it. That was his goal. And in return, he had one request. For the next 2 months, until the Olympiad was over, don't let his siblings interfere with him. Inhyuk sat quietly for a moment, studying his son. What a reckless gamble, he thought. He's staking everything on a gold medal he might not even win, just to buy himself some time. Still, with a small smirk, he finally replied, sounds tempting. Morning arrived, and Hale was still in the dorm, passed out on the floor, surrounded by open books. As he stirred awake, he rubbed his eyes, tried to remember if he'd actually fallen asleep or just blacked out mid-study. Sitting up, memories of last night rushed back. The moment he returned from the mansion, he'd thrown himself straight into training, hungry for the next challenge. He had just cleared the requirements for the second circle, but his sights were already locked on the third. To reach it, he needed to complete the second trial. The problem? He had no idea how. His only real lead was resonance. If he could raise it to the level of a second circle master, that might open the way. Flipping through the pages of his book, he muttered to himself. Pouring mana into the trial crystal had made it glow before. Maybe the resonance trial worked the same way? He had done that with the heart circle, so this one might follow similar rules. He summoned 2 infinity symbols, one glowing blue, The other read and intertwined them. Holding the merged symbol over the book, he waited, hoping for a reaction. Nothing. After a few seconds of silence, he let out a long sigh. Maybe I just need to clear my head. He decided to take a walk. Soon, he was strolling along the riverside, hands in his pockets. The city was quiet, the breeze light. A faint smile tugged at his lips. Sometimes, all you need is some fresh air. He closed his eyes, letting the peaceful moment sink in. After breakfast, he dived back into resonance theory with a clearer mind. But just as he was enjoying the calm, a voice called out, panicked. Watch out! Hale spun around, just in time, to see something white flying straight at his face. Before he could react, whap! A bag smacked him right in the face. He staggered back, groaning in pain. Ow, what the? A girl rushed over to him. Are you okay? Still clutching his face, he looked up. That hurt. Hey, wait, you're... It was Adela. A few moments later, the two of them walked along the river together. Hale glanced sideways and asked, So, how exactly did I end up getting smacked in the face by a plastic bag? Adela let out a sigh, looking embarrassed. Then she explained she'd been spinning around, humming to herself, daydreaming about enjoying a cold banana milk. She had the bag in her hand, and, well, it got away from her. Adela glanced away, a little embarrassed. The bag just slipped out of my hands, she mumbled. Hale, now holding the banana milk she'd been carrying, gave her a small smile. I get it. Clasping her hands over her chest, Adela sheepishly apologized. He shrugged. Well, I got free banana milk out of it. Is this the only thing you drink? With a proud grin, Adela opened her bag. Of course. This is humanity's greatest invention. Hale chuckled. All right, maybe not that great. The two walked on, sipping their drinks in silence for a while. Then Adela turned to him. I heard you went back home. He nodded slightly. Yeah, yesterday, they officially restored all my rights as part of the family. Adela's smile brightened. That's great. So, do you still want to become the head of the family? Hale looked at her, puzzled. Did I say that before? She nodded, a bit nostalgic. Yeah, back when we were kids, you used to talk about it a lot. He touched his chin thoughtfully. No, that's not my dream anymore. Adela blinked, taken aback. Wait, so you've given up? She coughed lightly, covering her mouth with her fist. I mean, the House of Magicians has a lot of strong contenders. Becoming the head isn't exactly easy. Hale looked at her, a little confused. Why would you say that? He smiled. It's not just about leading the House of Magicians. I'm aiming higher. I want to become the head of the Magic Tower. No, I want to stand at the very peak of the entire magical world. That's my goal. Adela froze, eyes wide. The top of the magic world? That's insane. Then, her expression softened. She smiled again, a little more serious this time. But coming from someone who's walked your path, I guess no goal is easy. Meanwhile, back at the Shin family mansion, Sea slammed her hands on the table, glaring. Brother, aren't you even a little concerned? Jihan stood with his arms crossed. I'm sure father has his reasons. He scowled at himself, though. Still, I can't believe he actually made that kind of decision. At the head of the table, In-hyuk sat quietly while both siblings stood before him. Jihan finally broke the silence. Why did you call us here, father? In-hyuk laced his fingers together and leaned forward. You two, I know exactly how you think. So let me make it clear. For the next few months, you're not to interfere with Hale in any way. Both of them immediately looked displeased. Sea shouted, What? What? Jihan smirked. Is there some special reason for this? In-hyuk's expression darkened as he spoke. You both should know by now, Hale has been officially reinstated as a member of the Mage House. His tone was firm. His standing may be low. He's been away from family matters for over a year. It'll take time for him to readjust. Sea and Jihan listened in silence, both visibly irritated, fists clenched at their sides. In-hyuk narrowed his eyes. You're probably thinking about putting pressure on him, trying to block him from making a move for the head position. Am I right? Jihan didn't respond. Then, with a forced smile, he replied, Understood, father. Anything else? In-hyuk stood and walked over to the window. Without turning around, he said, No, that's all. You two must be tired. Go get some rest. As they stepped out of the office, Sea spun around and shouted, Big brother, why didn't you even say anything? She stared at him, confused, but Jihan just rubbed his face in frustration. What difference would it make? He wouldn't listen. Jihan knew why Minhyuk and Minji hadn't been summoned. They never showed interest in the family head position. That made sense. But Hale? After a year of absence? And now they were supposed to leave him alone, just like that? It didn't add up. Their father must have told him to compensate for lost time somehow. But still, protecting him like this? That kind of leeway was only given to the younger kids under 16 who hadn't received their AI chips yet. Hale was already 17. He didn't qualify. Jihan's frustration boiled over. Why? Why would he demand this? Say, I bit her nail again. Maybe father already. No, Jihan cut her off. Definitely not. Hale hasn't done enough for father to bet on him like that. Say, I yelled. Then what is this all about? Does father see potential in him again, or what? Jihan's mind flashed back to what he heard about the tournament. Maybe he's just curious about that strange magic Hale's developed. Or maybe Hale struck some kind of deal. A deal. Saya echoed, frowning. But what could he even offer? She clutched her head in frustration and screamed. Ugh, this is infuriating. Now I'll have to recall all the people I planted to keep tabs on him. Jihan gave a half-hearted wave. Yeah, probably. Unless you want them gutted by the shadows. The shadows, father's personal spy force, trained in everything from surveillance to infiltration and execution. Once they were involved, there was no getting around them. As Jihan headed for the door, hands stuffed in his pockets, he casually said, Oh, and I've already pulled back the observers. Sayao blinked. Wait, then what are you planning to do next? Jihan turned to her, a smirk playing on his lips. I'll move first. You rarely get involved directly anyway, and I'm not about to sit idle for 2 months. If Hale had made some kind of deal with her father, that meant things could get messy. He'd need backup, and the Black Magic Tower might be exactly what he needed. Sometime later, at the Obelisk Academy, the classroom buzzed with a midterm energy. The teacher clapped his hands and smiled. All right, everyone passed the midterms. Nice work. Give yourselves a round of applause. A moment later, he looked toward one student in particular. I'm especially proud of the top scorer, Shin Hale. Hale stood from his seat and made his way to the front. The teacher beamed. Among all the students your age, I can confidently say you're the best in the country. Well done. Thank you, Hale replied with a slight nod. The teacher continued. Now that you're in first place, how about holding that spot until the World Olympiad? Ever thought of competing? Hale smiled. That's exactly what I'm aiming for. Murmurs broke out around the classroom. A guy in the back leaned over and whispered, Did you hear that? He learned a few tricks, and now he thinks he's a big deal. 2 months, another scoffed. Let him dream. He'll crash and burn soon enough. Bet he'll be a washed-up nobody in a week. Hale returned to his seat, unfazed. Later, in the hallway, Sunshine stretched with a groan. Finally, it's over. 8 theory classes, pure torture. Hale walked by and gave him a wink. Well, starting tomorrow, it's all practice, right? Sunshine slung his bag over his shoulder. Yeah, but it's going to be just as intense. Hale gave him a friendly jab in the chest. Good. I could use a bit of physical activity. Sunshine dropped to his knees, dramatically folding his hands. Are you sure you're a magician? Hale sighed, looking down at him. Clearly, you're out of shape. Sunshine got back up, face scrunched. You want to talk? Aren't you a magician too? He coughed. Right. Not weak with magic anymore. Hale waved him off. Then stop complaining and work on your weaknesses. Sunshine clenched his fists. Fine. I'll bulk up and beat you one day. Hale chuckled. Is that so? Well, how about we grab some food first, then hit the gym? Sunshine gave him a confused look, brows furrowed. Wait, seriously? What kind of face was that? The protagonist asked. Sunshine took a step back. It's not that I don't want to, he said. I'm just not feeling great today. Hale crossed his arms and cut him off. Spit out. If you're not going to say it straight, then forget it. Sunshine rested his hands on the protagonist's shoulders. Fine, I'll be honest, he said. I don't hate training. I just don't like training with you. That clear enough? Hale frowned. Then why are you even here? Sunshine sighed and lowered his head. Because you're scary. Everyone thinks so. Later, in the Obelisk Academy training hall, the protagonist was lifting a heavy barbell while the others stared in disbelief. His strength stunned the room. Hale, doing squats nearby, was deep in thought. What's up with Sunshine? All he did was try to remind him how important training is. Someone nearby pointed and asked, Who even is that? Is a human really lifting that? Another chimed in, rubbing his chin. Isn't that Shin Hale? Second-year champion. After finishing his set, the protagonist wiped his face with a towel. He reflected to himself. He'd been so focused on mastering the weightless energy style that he'd completely overlooked physical training. Now he felt weak. Taking a sip of water, Hale remembered what Eider once said. The circle of infinity flows through the entire body. Strengthening the body strengthens the circle. They work together. The protagonist stepped onto a treadmill, thinking if he trained both physically and magically, he could build the body he always wanted. Before long, he was headed to the tower for monster training. The pumas circled him, hissing with fiery eyes. As they lunged, Hail summoned a magic circle and sent them soaring into the air. The beasts charged again. He crouched just in time. Focusing his energy, he shouted, "Fiery volcano," and leapt aside as the pumas froze mid-attack. Then they vanished. A voice called out, "Shin Hail. Monster training complete. Result perfect. Highest score." He smiled and thanked the teacher. Later, sitting on a bench, he stared at his hand. Thanks to the infinity circles, he thought, my physical strength's gone up by at least 50%. Once I hit the third circle, he clenched his fist. I'll push the infinity circles as far as they can go. The protagonist lowered his head, reminding himself to focus. Resonance circle. 2 streams of mana surged through his body. Now came the hard part, reducing vibration and flow deviation. 12.25%. For 0.63%, stabilize. He shifted his focus to the Heart's Call circle. Aligned by 8.9%, steady. Energy pulsed through him, flowing evenly. Hail concentrated a bit longer, then finally lifted his head and let out a tired sigh. 99% synced, he thought. Still missing that last percent, no matter what I do. But he had to master the second circle. He clenched his fist, determined. He would make it happen. Sometime later, he was out running, earbuds in, music pumping. As he rounded a corner, a figure blocked his path. The man lunged. Hail dodged instantly. "Who the hell are you?" he asked. A hooded figure in a black mask stepped forward. "Sayuk," Hail said, recognizing him immediately. Sayuk launched another attack, but Hail dodged again. "TC, squirming like a rat," Sayuk muttered. Hail calmly placed his earbuds on the ground. "It's the weekend. Shouldn't you be heading home?" Sayuk sneered. "Oh, it's not that I don't want to. It's that I can't, right?" Hail stood up, smirking. "Let me guess, probation? That why you're stuck here?" Sayuk snapped. "Shut your mouth before I shut it for you." Hail just laughed. "Didn't you used to hide behind your dad's name? Now look at you. Too ashamed to face your own family? Got nowhere to go." Enraged, Sayuk's magic flared. He hurled a wave of fire toward him. "Shut up, you trash," he shouted. Eyes wide, Hail backed up. "Wait, is this idiot really casting magic in public over a few words?" Sayuk leapt at him, yelling again. Hail caught his wrist mid-air, his grip tight. "Wah!" Sayuk froze in fear as Hail kicked up, sending him flying. With one swift move, Hail pinned him down using his legs. "Get off me, you idiot!" Sayuk shouted. Even this mess, it's still a good chance to test myself, Hail thought. Moments later, black cars screeched to a halt. Officers poured out, restraining Sayuk as he yelled, "Let me go. I need to teach that punk a lesson." "Calm down," one officer said. "You can explain later. Come with us." Hail stood nearby, speaking to the inspector. "He tried to hit me with combat magic. There's a security camera right there. It probably caught everything. Hard to believe he actually used magic in public." The inspector nodded. "We'll release the report at the academy tomorrow. It's late. Head back to your room." As the staff forced Sayuk into the car, Hail watched from the side, thinking, just let him keep spiraling. Later, the academy hallways buzzed with students. A new penalty report had been posted on the wall. Beck Sayuk docked 10 points for attempting to use combat magic off campus. Someone nearby muttered, "Did you hear? He really tried to cast combat magic on the street." "Seriously? And he only got 10 points off? That's it. Why didn't they suspend him?" Hail turned away, thinking to himself, "Just a 10-point deduction. Huh? Not that surprising." The Beck family had deep ties to the academy. They donated a massive amount in the past. Naturally, the school wasn't about to jeopardize that relationship. A slap on the wrist was all he'd ever get. Still, Hail thought as he walked through the corridor, he's probably going to be drowning in lectures at home for a while. Outside, Sayuk stood with his phone pressed tightly to his ear. His father's furious voice echoed so loudly, it could have been on speaker. "You stupid rat. Please, father, forgive me," Sayuk stammered. "I told you to keep your head down until graduation. Was that so hard? No, if our family loses rank because of this, it'll be your fault. Do you understand?" "Yes. I'm sorry." He pulled the phone away, glaring at the screen. The contact read money bag. With a disgusted look, he hissed, "Ugh, freaking leech." Enraged, he hurled the phone at a nearby pillar, clenched his jaw, and growled through his teeth. "Shin hail!" He shouted louder. "Shin hail! That damn Shin hail! That insufferable smug!" He kicked the phone across the ground, still fuming. "It's all because of him. That worthless trash." Suddenly, a voice sounded behind him, light and calm. My, that heart of yours looks pretty twisted by jealousy." Sayuk froze and turned around. "Instructor Smith?" Smith stood smiling, arms casually open. "It's perfectly fine to love or to hate. Everyone gets to choose." He stepped closer. "But Sayuk, don't you want revenge?" Sayuk stared at him, unsure. Smith's tone shifted. "Then go take it. On Shin hail." After some time had passed, the protagonist sat quietly in his room, eyes fixed on his phone screen. He figured back, Sayuk must have already faced consequences. Well, that only worked in his favor. Just then, a message from his father popped up. Apparently, a deal had been struck with the Beck family. In return for ignoring the incident, they'd hand over shares equal to 3% of the profits from their magic stone mines. His father added, "He's a good kid. If he needs anything, just let him ask." The protagonist figured the Beck family was desperate to secure an official title. That meant maintaining solid ties, not just with the academy, but also with powerful families like theirs. They had no choice but to go to such lengths. After all, the person involved was him, the rightful heir of the House of Magicians. No doubt they'd do whatever it took to bury the issue. And 3% of those mining profits was no small offering. It was a clear example of how much weight an official title carried. A title symbolized status and recognition. The Divine Guardian family held the title of Mythical, and the Wei family bore the title of Mysterious. Titles set families apart. As for Beck Sayuk, he'd now been disowned by his own family over the recent events. With his current abilities, he posed no real threat. The protagonist closed the message, picked up a book, and said to himself, since that's dealt with, it's time to stop playing Santa and handing out favors. Time to get back to work on the residence project. Later on, security personnel in suits began appearing around the academy. The protagonist, Hale, glanced around and thought, looks like they've stepped up security after everything that happened. Suddenly, someone called out to him, "Shin Hale." He turned to see Instructor Smith approaching. Smith gave a slight smirk. "Ah, yes, yes." He studied Hale's calm expression, then said, I noticed something. You don't seem to like me very much." Hale smiled. "Yeah, that's not at all." Smith gave a knowing smile. "It's okay. I get it. I was tough on you, but it was always for your own good. Don't take it the wrong way, all right?" Hale furrowed his brow, a bit confused. "Okay," he replied, thinking, why is he bringing this up now? Then Smith asked, "What do you say we start fresh?" He extended his hand. Hale hesitated. "I don't think that's necessary." "Thanks, though." Suddenly, a dark energy surged around him. He stiffened, thoughts racing. What is this strange sensation? Instructor Smith, though a bit late, finally spoke up. He congratulated Hale on taking first place in the midterm exams, extending his hand with a smile. He wished him continued success. Hale clenched his jaw, a flicker of confusion in his mind. Smith was clearly radiating mana. He narrowed his eyes, sensing the heavy, sinister energy pouring off the man. Could it be? Is this really happening? That ominous feeling. This isn't normal. Is he connected to the Black Magic Tower? Hale froze, eyes widening. The Black Magic Tower, an underground faction not officially recognized like the other 12 towers. It was a den of criminals, led by a mage who called himself the king of black magic. No way. Smith's involved with them? Hale's thoughts raced. If that's true, then it's possible other members of the Black Tower are hiding within the academy too. But the timeline doesn't matter now. A flash of red flickered in his eyes. First things first. Analyze the spell structure, he thought. That'll give me a read on the situation. System windows materialized in his mind as he initiated a breakdown of the magical formula. Wait, this pattern, this is mind control magic. He paused. Mind control? But my brain can't be influenced by mana. Smith's spell won't affect me. Relieved, Hale closed his eyes for a second. Good, that's one problem avoided. Still, he needed to play it smart. If I act like the spell worked, maybe I can figure out what they're planning. He opened his eyes again. Smith gave a slight wave of his hand, expression shifting. Who would have thought, he sneered, a defective reject who couldn't use an AI chip. Now getting an apology from me. He stepped in close and ordered, "Listen carefully, Shin Hale." Smith pressed the chip into his hand and said, "Keep this on you at all times. Don't ask questions. Just follow instructions. Hale gripped the chip tightly. Understood, he replied, eyes calm but mind racing. Smith adjusted his glasses. Shin, Hale, tell me everything about your magic modification. Hale's eyes widened. No way I can reveal that. Clutching his head, he let out a sudden scream, staggering as if in pain. He stumbled, yelling louder and louder. Smith stepped back, clearly alarmed. It seems his subconscious is fighting to protect the secrets of his unique magic. He hesitated, then backed off. Fine, cancel it. Hale smirked silently. What a fool. Mind control magic targets the brain and forces a person to obey. It's the Black Tower's signature technique. If cast by a powerful mage, it can even destroy the target's mind. That's why it's banned. But he knew the key weakness. If the spell touches a subject deeply tied to someone's core, their mind can naturally resist. Pushing harder only risks mental collapse. He backed off too easily, Hale thought. That means my magic isn't their main objective. Smith, visibly annoyed, muttered, what a shame. If your magic was part of our plan, I would have taken it, happily. But we can't let personal greed get in the way of the mission. Smith extended his hand with a grin. Well then, we'll just wait till the mission's over. After that, I'll drain every last secret out of you. Hale suddenly shouted and stood up, eyes locked on Smith in shock. The instructor raised an eyebrow. Student Shin, Hale? He forced a smile. Are you all right? You seemed out of it during our talk. Maybe you're just exhausted. He gave a short nod. Well, I won't trouble you any further. With that, Smith turned and walked away. Hale watched him leave, frowning in frustration. Not long after, familiar voices echoed through the academy halls. A few students were headed toward the entrance, grumbling about how hungry they were, tossing around the idea of hitting the canteen. Off to the side, a group of girls chatted quietly. Evening classes were wrapping up. Hale kept walking, trying to clear his mind. Eventually, he reached the garden, took a seat on a bench, and stared at the chip Smith had given him. This is an illegal AI chip, extra level. They're trying to set me up, he thought. Make it look like I've been using forbidden tech. He pictured the scandal splashed across news feeds, a promising heir exposed as a criminal. They were aiming straight for his reputation. He rested his chin on his hand, narrowing his eyes. Smith doesn't seem like the type to go this far, just out of spite. He said our relationship wasn't ideal, but even then, someone must have put him up to this. Someone from the Black Magic Tower, no doubt. That would explain a lot. Then he remembered Sayuk screaming his name. Shin, Hale, I'll kill you. But Sayuk was under too many restrictions now. That level of retaliation was nearly impossible for him. No, Hale thought, the real threat is closer. It has to be one of my siblings. They want to drag me down so they can secure their spot as head of the family. He counted 4 suspects. Minji, she's never really been part of the power struggle. No reason for her to go this far. Minhyuk does want the position, but he's not the type to stoop this low. That left 2 others. They're the most likely ones. They could even be working together. He clenched his fist. Should I confront Smith? Force the truth out of him? No, that was too risky. The Black Tower wouldn't sit back if their secrets got out, and there was no guarantee Smith even knew who was behind it. Pressing him could just turn Hale into a target. Drawing the Black Tower's attention now would be a massive mistake. He scowled. In that case, time passed. Eventually, Hale stepped into a large building. There, by the window, stood Kim Kanjin. Welcome, Hale, Kim Kanjin said with a smile. He turned to face him. So, Hale asked, what exactly did you want to see me about? Kim Kanjin frowned, eyeing Hale with a sharp gaze. Hale thought to himself, that's Kim Kanjin, the master of the Blue Magic Tower. His greeting was noticeably colder than usual. Still, there was no other choice. Kim Kanjin rubbed his forehead and sighed. Listen, I'm a bit tied up right now. This isn't the best time. No way, Hale thought. This might be my only shot. Rumors have been swirling that Kim Kanjin had buried himself in research lately. He's clearly been on edge. Must be deep into something. Hale stepped forward. Did I interrupt your research? Kim Kanjin gestured to the side. Yeah, I've been working on something unusual. A man of stone. It's taking longer than expected. Man of stone? Hale glanced toward a crystal lying carefully on a cushioned lining inside a suitcase. That's an elemental stone, he realized. A grin formed on his face. Perfect timing. Kim Kanjin settled onto a sofa and waved his hand. All right, make it quick. Just get to the point. He pinched the bridge of his nose. So, Hale, what was so urgent that you had to insist on a face-to-face meeting? Hale paused, noticing how agitated Kim Kanjin was. He's on the edge. No matter what I say, he's not going to cooperate unless we find some common ground. Before diving in, Hale spoke calmly. Before we get into anything, there's something I want to share with you. Something about the stone you're studying. Kim Kangin's eyes widened, his whole body freezing. What? You know something about those stones? Hale nodded. Yes. Kim Kangin's tone shifted instantly, now sharp. You'd better watch your words. The name of those stones hasn't even been officially disclosed yet. Are you spying on the Blue Magic Tower? Hale raised his hands in front of him, keeping his voice steady. Absolutely not. I'm not spying. Kim Kanjin narrowed his eyes. Then how do you know? Hale calmly reached into his bag. It's simple. He pulled out a glowing crystal. I have one, he said, holding it up. Kim Kanjin shot up from the couch. What? Hale nodded. That's right. It's a perfectly tuned elemental stone. Kim Kanjin clutched his face in disbelief. Wait, Hale, did you tune this yourself? Hale looked him in the eye. Yes, I did. Kim Kanjin stared at him. Are you kidding me? He thought back to James Pillar, one of the top magic engineers from the Red Magic Tower. Even the elite engineers from Kim Kangin's own tower, experts with years of experience in magic stone research, hadn't been able to solve it. Even I couldn't manage the mana synchronization, he thought. And now you're telling me a student figured out? He smirked and asked Hale, was tuning that stone just pure luck? The protagonist nodded, saying he figured only the master of the Blue Magic Tower could truly understand what kind of material it was. That's why he brought it along. Kim Kanjin raised a brow and asked if he'd be willing to explain how he tuned it. Hale glanced at the crystal and simply said he didn't really know. It just sort of happened naturally. That's all he could say. Kim Kanjin squinted slightly, a hint of envy in his voice. So he got the stone by luck, and tuned it by luck too? Seems like fortune's favorite. Hale just laughed it off. Kim Kanjin leaned on the table. All right, he said. Every magician has the right to keep his own secrets. He shut his eyes, raised his hands, and added, I won't press any further. Hale thanked him. Kim Kanjin then pointed to the crystal. Mind if I take a closer look? The protagonist gave a nod. Go ahead. Slipping on his gloves, Kim Kanjin examined the stone. This is perfectly attuned, a mana stone aligned with all four elements. He handed it back to Hale. So you brought this for? Hale confirmed. He brought it to craft an artifact. Kim Kanjin removed his gloves and thought for a moment. An artifact, huh? What kind? Something to wear? Jewelry? A weapon maybe? The protagonist replied, anything that could enhance elemental magic would do. Kim Kanjin nodded. Got it. But stones of this level need equally rare materials. It's going to cost you. A lot. You sure you're ready for that? Then, with a dramatic wave of his hands, he exclaimed, Forgive me. He's a proud heir of a mage's house. After all, he joked about sending the bill straight to Hale's father. But Hale shook his head and put a finger to his lips. Let's keep this for my family, he said seriously. Kim Kanjin chuckled. Ah, so that's how it is. You're a crafty one. So how do you plan to pay? He traced a glowing number in the air. 645 million. That's about how much this will run you. Think you can cover that yourself? Hale replied with a smile, then went silent. Kim Kanjin pressed. You have another way, don't you? Hale nodded. I can attune all elemental stones like this, he said, holding out his hand. I can even show you right now. Kim Kangin's eyes lit up. Wait, you're saying you'd actually show me how you do it? The protagonist clenched his fist with a grin, and Kim Kanjin exclaimed, Now that's a tempting offer. Honestly, that kind of skill was worth more than the price. It would even leave them in his debt. But Hale's smile faded. He asked if he could request a favor in return. Kim Kanjin raised a brow. A favor? Does it have something to do with our current agenda? Hale reached into his coat and handed something over. Kim Kanjin studied it carefully. This is an extra-level chip? A forbidden AI? He looked up. Where did you get this? Hale's hands tightened into fists. A mage from the Black Magic Tower slipped it to me at the academy. I'm convinced there's a criminal group working inside Bisque Academy. He looked straight at Kim Kanjin. Please, help me take them down. Later, after everything was discussed, Hale stepped out of the car, leaned toward the window, and said, Thanks for the ride. Take care. Kim's secretary gave a nod. See you around. As she drove off, Hale watched her go for a moment before heading upstairs. He dropped onto his bed with a sigh. I'm exhausted. Still, he couldn't help but smile. Who would have thought Kim Kanjin was researching elemental stones? Thanks to that, he He was getting his hands on an artifact that even his own father wouldn't know existed. His thoughts drifted to Sayuk, furious, shouting he'd never forgive Hale. Originally, Hale planned to use the 3% share he'd received from the Beck family as a bargaining chip. But now, he didn't have to. That asset was safe. Perfect. He remembered Kim Kang-in's serious expression. I still can't believe it. Mages from the Black Magic Tower hiding out in Obelisk Academy, a place known for its airtight security. And this AI chip is our only lead. Hale asked, isn't this too much to expect from you? Kim Kang-jin gave a sly wink. Under normal circumstances, sure. A student's word and one illegal chip wouldn't mean much. But fine, we'll take a risk and look into it. Sometime later, Hale walked through the corridor, speaking into his phone. Is he there yet? A voice asked. Yeah, Hale replied. The rest is up to you, just like we planned. He stepped into the elevator. Kim Kang-in's voice came through next, reassuring him. If your info checks out, the Blue Tower won't make any mistakes. Understood, Hale answered. I trust you. I'll wait for your call. The elevator doors opened, and he stepped into a grand hall. He smiled. I'm here, everyone. Seated at the table were his family members. Minji, the second daughter of the House of Magicians, beamed. Oh my God, it's been forever, Hale. The protagonist smiled and said, it's been a while. You haven't changed a bit. Minji raised an eyebrow. Is that supposed to be a compliment? Of course it is, Hale replied. She reached up and tousled his hair. You've grown up. At this rate, you'll be taller than Inyek soon. Just then, Shin Inyek, the second son, grinned. Come on, Minji. He's still got some growing to do. He patted Hale's shoulder. Welcome back. I know it's silly, but I'm really glad you're here. Hale smiled. Thanks, brother. He thought to himself. Inyek hadn't changed at all. Still straightforward and sincere. Minji frowned. Brother, you always say things like that without thinking. Inyek looked confused. What? What did I say this time? Hale turned away, pretending not to notice the tension. It's been a while since we've all been together. Just then, Shin Jihan, the eldest son, chuckled. Look at you, acting all grown up. You don't look so uptight anymore. Saya, the first daughter, gave a cool greeting. Long time no see, youngest. Hale smiled politely, but thought to himself. She might be smiling, but deep down she'd tear him apart without hesitation. If there's a villain at this table, it's definitely her. Jihan raised his glass. Come on, sit. Let's eat and talk. I'm dying to know. Why'd you call us all here, little brother? Hale took a seat and replied casually. No real reason. Just felt like seeing everyone again after all this time. Saya, clearly irritated, asked, That's it? You drag us all here for that? We're not exactly free, you know. Hale smiled slyly, narrowing his eyes. Let's be honest. Even if I didn't call this meeting, you and Jihan would have arranged one yourselves eventually. Am I wrong? Saya slammed her hands on the table. Watch your tone when you speak to your elders. She pointed a finger at him. Enough games. Just say it. What are you scheming, you little brat? Hale blinked. What are you talking about? She shouted again. Cut the act. You're planning to fight for the head of the family, aren't you? He grinned. But what if I said I wasn't? Would you believe me? Never. Saya snapped. Then why bother asking? He replied coolly. Saya's face turned red with rage. You little rascal. Jihan gave a light smile and said, Yeah, you're right. You shouldn't have asked. Actions speak louder than words. But hey, Hale, did he come up with some kind of magic? Modified magic, right? Isn't he going to explain it to the family? The protagonist looked at him, slightly surprised. Smart move, getting him to reveal his technique. This is a subtle way of testing if he's fit to become the next family head. That's actually clever, he thought. But they can't back him into a corner. Putting on a helpless look, he said, Brother, sister, that magic is my only card. I don't mesh well with AI like the rest of you. I can't just hand over the one thing keeping me afloat. This has nothing to do with the competition. Minji's eyes welled up. Then, there's nothing we can do. This really is all he has. Jihan and Saya looked at each other, confused, clearly not expecting that response. Minji gently wiped a tear from the protagonist's eye, and he felt deeply thankful that she understood. Inyek let out a laugh, raised his glass, and said, Well then, forget the competition talk. It's pointless. Let's just hear how he's been lately. Minji nodded in agreement. Yeah, I want to hear what brother's been up to. Jihan glanced down at his glass, then crossed his arms and shifted his gaze towards Sa. Meanwhile, the rest of the siblings laughed and talked amongst themselves. Just then, the clock chimed. Hale thought to himself, that should be enough time. Out of nowhere, Everyone's phones buzzed at once with a notification. Minji looked at her screen, shocked. Wait, what is this? Inyuk frowned. An emergency alert? Sei yelled. Right now? Seriously? Jihan's expression darkened, but he didn't say a word. The breaking news alert flashed across their screens. A connection had been confirmed between certain Obelisk Academy instructors and the Black Magic Tower. Lang Smith, second son of the well-known Smith family in France, had been arrested. The report cited confirmation from Kim Kangyan's secretary, Zhang Sua, a sixth-circle sorceress from the Blue Magic Tower. The protagonist glanced at Jihan's face. Busted, he thought. So it's him. Shin Jihan. Later, Hale was walking down a quiet street, talking through his earbuds. Kim Kangyan's voice came through. Just like you predicted, it's all gone down. Hale looked at his phone screen, where an article was open. The headline read, at 10:31 p.m., Zhang Sua, Sixth Circle Sorceress and Secretary to Kim Kangyan, apprehended Lang Smith tampering with the training facilities at Obelisk Academy. Lang had secretly altered the equipment used for the upcoming survival test. If Zhang Sua hadn't noticed in time, the scale of destruction that could have followed was unimaginable. The Korean government, the Korean Magic Association, and the International Magic Association all released statements condemning the Black Tower and promising zero tolerance from this point on. Kim Kangyan asked, but how did he figure out Lang Smith would mess with the test preparations? Hale adjusted his earpiece and answered calmly, it was the only logical outcome, given the clues I had. He recalled the events in his mind. Since someone had infiltrated the academy, it had to be with a goal in mind. When he lined up the timeline, it all made sense. The mind control spell had been triggered right before the survival exam, which was set for Friday. If someone wanted to sabotage the exam, the most efficient way would be to tamper with the equipment. And since all the gear gets inspected the day before, the perfect window to strike would be Thursday night, tonight. That's why Hale had asked the Blue Magic Tower to keep an eye on the equipment room. Meanwhile, he had gone to meet his brothers and sisters. Around the same time, the Black Magic Tower's representative should have been apprehended. And sure enough, Instructor Smith was caught. The protagonist imagined Smith's pathetic expression plastered across news headlines. He also discovered it was Jihan who had been secretly liaising with the Black Tower. By keeping his involvement in the shadows, he got the intel he needed without putting himself at risk. The plan had gone off without a hitch. As he strolled down the street, he thought, the only problem is I only have indirect proof linking my brother and Smith. Nothing solid yet, but he'd get to the bottom of it. Just then, Kim spoke up. Hale, you tried to stop it, but it ended up working in their favor. The Blue Magic Tower's fame is through the roof now. It's like they had everything figured out from start. I'll return the favor somehow, Hale replied with a chuckle. Kim grinned at his sincerity and said, that's what I like about you. Hale removed the earpiece and said, yeah, tell them thanks. That's it then, he thought. Suddenly, an explosion erupted behind him, and the shockwave flung him backward. He let out a terrified scream. What the hell? A dark figure emerged from the smoke, muttering, Shin Hale. Shin Hale. Sayuk stepped forward, voice cold and sharp. Die, you filthy insect. Just die. The protagonist stared, stunned. Beck, he thought. Without warning, Beck hurled a wave of magic at him. So fast, Hale barely had time to react, clenching his jaw as he summoned his energy. He cast Resonance, followed by a water shield. But the pressure of the attack was overwhelming. This shield won't hold. Gripping one hand with the other, he layered in a static water shield. The two energy forces collided, and the impact triggered a violent explosion. Hale was thrown to the side, glancing at his burned palm. I didn't dodge all of it, he thought grimly. Sayuk burst from the smoke, laughing maniacally. Feel it. The gap between us, he yelled, eyes wild. You pathetic, broken failure. Had enough of playing hero. Sitting on the ground, Hale muttered with frustration. Beck Sayuk. He eyed the crazed attacker carefully. Something's off. Bloodshot eyes, reddened skin. It wasn't normal. It looked like he had taken Berserker, an illegal enhancer that forces the magic circle into overdrive at the cost of bursting blood vessels. They called it Berserker because the user turned into a mindless brawler, fighting until their body gave out. He's lost it, Hale shouted. Sayuk charged like a man possessed. Lost it? No, I feel great. Hale kept scanning him. Scarlet mana pulses. That's third circle magic, flame infection. Throwing his arms forward, he tried to intercept the charge. You lunatic! Hale screamed. Sayuk, drooling and wide-eyed, cackled. I'm more alive than ever. Everything makes sense now, and you're going to die. As Sayuk's flaming hand came within inches, Hale braced himself. The moment the flame infection struck, a massive explosion erupted, sending thick smoke billowing into the sky. Sayuk rose from the smoke, laughing again. Look at this fool. Hale was down, coughing hard, his hand over his face. He's still breathing? Sayuk snarled in disbelief. He blocked it again. What kind of broken freak is this? Glaring at him, Hale watched as Sayuk spiraled, mumbling over and over. How dare he? How dare he? How dare he? Gripping his own hair, Sayuk let out a raw scream. SHLY. Then suddenly he stopped. Exhausted, he muttered, No, it's possible. Maybe. Hale slowly pushed himself upright, thinking carefully. He's emotionally unstable. Definitely a berserker. But something wasn't right. Even with that drug, there's no way it should boost his magic that much. Should I test it? Noticing Hale's stare, Sayuk narrowed his eyes. What are you looking at? Raising his hand, Hale shouted, Air spear. Streams of energy surged towards Sayuk, but right before impact, they twisted and turned into flames. Sayuk froze, staring in shock. What? What kind of magic is this? The protagonist muttered. He dodged the spears, sure, but he'd better stay alert. Without wasting a second, he closed in and activated his magic. Staring at Sayuk's wild expression, Hale focused. Gotta strike before he reacts. Airstrike. The blast of energy surged forward, landing squarely. Sayuk let out a heavy cough. Got him, Hale thought, until Sayuk suddenly threw his hands up and conjured a fire shield. Fire magic? At this distance? Hale braced himself. Sayuk launched a fire pellet, shouting, Die. The flames surged out fast and intense. Fire pellets were devastating at close range. Within 7.74 meters, they could melt through almost anything. But outside that range, easier to dodge. As the flames roared toward him, Hale made a quick leap, dodging just in time. Exhaling sharply, he thought, Does he hate me that much? Did he really install an illegal over-enhancement chip? Sayuk snarled, swinging an arm wildly. What extra chip? Don't spout garbage. Hale closed his eyes briefly. He doesn't remember? Then I was right, Sayuk bellowed. I don't need tricks to crush garbage like you. And there it was, a small, purple chip embedded at the back of Sayuk's neck, digging into the skin. Stop babbling, Sayuk screamed. Just die already. Hale ducked aside again, explaining, An enhanced chip like that doesn't just strengthen the body, it also reconfigures spell formulas. That's why it's banned. Too much damage, too much range. Charging like a madman, Sayuk shouted. Why should I care? Shut up, idiot. Hale stepped back, murmuring, How ironic. My latest research has been all about how mana circle structures affect magic formulas. That's why I can sense these unnatural boosts. It suddenly clicked. Was this dumb luck? Or fate? Either way, I'm seeing it all now, thanks to this illegal chip and the Berserker combo. Sayuk turned blue with rage. What nonsense are you spewing now, freak? Hale raised his hand and said calmly, I'm not thanking you, but I am wondering if I can end this before sunrise. He activated his magic again. Resonance. I'm going to push even higher. Enhanced chips like this allowed someone to cast one circle above their usual limit. But Hale wasn't walking in blind. He'd been digging through piles of intel on this exact topic, even the most obscure records. Clutching his head, Hale grimaced. The real issue is the cost. He had experimented before, speeding up magic circles by blending energy flows. It worked, but at a steep price. Mind and body couldn't handle the strain for long. For someone at the second mana circle, he muttered, it lasts 3 minutes. Just 3. He raised a hand again. After that, the circle shuts down completely. No mana output. For 12 whole hours. He tightened his stance. So before using something like this, you'd better be damn sure it's worth it. Sayuk kept gathering energy, muttering something under his breath. What's he babbling about now? Idiot, he growled, shaking from fear. The protagonist shut his eyes. 3 minutes, that's all I need, he whispered. He crouched low, palms flat against the ground. In an instant, massive energy spikes shot up from the earth, piercing through Sayuk's body. Screaming in agony, Sayuk shouted, Is this third circle magic? How can an idiot like you already control third circle spells? The protagonist scratched his head with a finger. How do I even begin to explain it? Sayuk staggered back, rage boiling over. Just die already, he roared. Arms spread wide. The protagonist replied calmly. I've realized something. I suck at spells, and my curses are even worse. Real textbook stuff. He cast a water shield, just as Sayuk hurled blazing fire magic at him. Sayuk laughed maniacally. You fool. You're gonna try to block it again? You messed up last time. Burn. Suddenly, a massive energy vortex exploded into view. Sayuk's eyes widened. What? What the hell is that? The protagonist traced the energy flow with a hand. You should have thought this through. Anyone in your shoes would have realized this shield's not like the last one. Just like those earth spikes, different level entirely. Your flames won't even scratch me now. Sayuk charged. Shin hail, he shouted, repeating the name again as he rushed forward, laughing. So you powered up, huh? Must have juiced yourself again. No way you're winning without doping. The protagonist kept his eyes closed. It's over, he said flatly. You brought this on yourself. No mercy. He cast darkness, blindness. Sayuk panicked. What the hell is this? Swallowed in pitch-black void, he stumbled. The protagonist's voice echoed. If you hadn't been so fixated on killing, none of this would have happened. Sayuk clenched his fists, shouting wildly. Stop running. Shin hail. Face me, you coward. Attack already. Without a word, the protagonist used Earthbind, followed by Airbind. Energy chains lashed out and pinned Sayuk in place. What is this magic? He gasped, feet sinking into thick mud. It's too late, the protagonist said. The last bit of kindness I can offer is to end this fast and make it painless. Sayuk screamed, thrashing. Stop preaching, you idiot. I'm not finished. If it weren't for you, my life. Eyes still closed, the protagonist walked past him and murmured, even if it wasn't me, nothing would have changed. Sayuk frantically looked around, yelling, where did he go? The protagonist's voice echoed. Tisich, typical. Just looking for someone else to blame. Come back here, you idiot. Sayuk shouted. Oh right, the protagonist continued, ignoring him. You ever wonder why extra-level chips are banned? What the hell are you talking about? Sayuk screamed. In a flash, the protagonist appeared behind him, grabbing him by the neck. Sayuk howled in pain. The protagonist grinned. All it took was a single pulse of mana to your overheated chip. Even under the effects of Berserker, it must be excruciating. Drool spilled from Sayuk's mouth as he begged for it to stop. With a slight smirk, the protagonist said, your system's overloaded. The AI, your body, neither can handle even the tiniest shock anymore. Sayuk kept screaming in agony. And finally, the protagonist added, thanks for your idiotic performance today. The Beck family's gonna pay up big time. This time, not just 30%, maybe 40%, of the Magic Stone Mine profits. Eyes full of tears, Sayuk stammered. Goodbye, Beck Sayuk, the protagonist said calmly. And thanks again. You just became my walking gold mine. He placed his palm over the chip. With a burst of dark energy, Sayuk was erased. In reality, his body collapsed to the ground, smoke rising off it. The protagonist picked up a phone from the floor and made a call. Father, it's Tail. Inhyuk answered groggily. Why are you calling this late? Looking off into the distance, Tail replied. You saw everything, didn't you? No need to act like you didn't. The empty streets were unnaturally quiet. Not even a single student in sight. No cops, either, even after all that noise near the dorms. From the top floor of a skyscraper, Inhyuk replied, maybe the students just went into hiding. And just because I could stop the police doesn't mean I actually did. Tail chuckled. True, plenty of people can stop the police, but only you would watch the whole thing play out. Anyone else would have stepped in, either to stop the fight or stab me in the back. And thanks to our little deal, he added, the others can't interfere anyway. Inhyuk laughed. Yeah, that does sound like me. Tail glanced toward a cluster of green bushes, just as a man in a black mask stepped out. Inhyuk's voice came through the phone again. I assigned Sukhyun to watch over you. A moment later, Tail began walking away from the scene. So tell me, Inhyuk asked, if you knew we were watching, why even call? Hale smirked. Just wanted to brag. I hit third circle. Inhyuk frowned. Strange. I don't recall you pulling off any major feats lately. Don't tell me you've been hiding your third circle magic this whole time. The protagonist replied with clear irritation. Yeah, that's what I said, didn't I? Of course it was a lie. The truth? He'd only tapped into the resonance circle's acceleration to give himself a short burst of power. In his mind, he pictured Jihan and Seiya. No matter what, he still didn't have the strength to face them. If word got out that he wielded third circle magic, his siblings would clamp down on him even harder. Winking, he added, oh, and one more thing. Suk-hyun used a soundproof barrier and illusion spell to keep us sealed off from everyone else. The protagonist looked towards Sayuk, still slumped near the bushes. In-hyuk nodded. Smart move. I've sent a car for you. Go home and rest for the night. Thanks, the protagonist replied. We'll talk again soon. In-hyuk hung up, chuckled to himself, and muttered, I have no idea what he's been doing all year, but damn, his confidence is something else. Meanwhile, the protagonist turned with a faint smile. It's been a while. Suk-hyun. Suk-hyun removed his mask. Indeed, young Master Hale, he said with a respectful bow. Forgive me for being late. He reached out, gently touching Hale's cheek. That's quite a wound. I'll take care of the first aid. Your family doctors can handle the rest. Hale nodded with a smile. Thanks. I'll leave the rest here to you then. Suk-hyun replaced his mask. Don't worry. Nothing that happened tonight will get past the barrier. At that moment, elsewhere in the city, inside a sleek apartment, Jihan yanked off his tie and screamed in frustration. This is a nightmare. He stormed forward, yelling again, what the hell went wrong? Suddenly, he spotted a man in a hooded robe lounging on his couch. You just getting back? The man asked casually. I thought I'd be waiting all night. At least the sofa is comfortable. Jihan glared. You from the Black Tower? The man twirled the ring on his lip and nodded. Yeah, but now's not the time for formalities. What a disaster. Can't believe the Blue Tower had to step in and wreck everything. Hard to make moves when your people get busted before they even start. Furious, Jihan snapped. You think this is funny? Your tower promised everything would go smoothly, or do your guarantees mean nothing? He slammed his hand down. Are you trying to ruin me? The robed man raised his hands calmly. Easy. I get it. I laugh when things blow up too. But since the mission flopped, we'll return the full payment. And of course, erase every trace, clean and quiet. He extended a hand. After all, we do everything for our VIP clients. No leaks. You have our word, Langsmith. Then he added with a sly grin. He won't be seeing the sunrise. Jihan waved him off furiously. Smith doesn't care about who lives or dies. But those illegal AI chips he gave to Hale, and that moron Beck Sayuk, plus the Berserker gear, he definitely cares about that. So tell me, how are we going to fix this mess? The hooded man adjusted his cloak. You don't need to stress. Beck's done for. Jihan stiffened. Done for? What does that even mean? He went after Shin Hale, the man replied. Now, he's practically a walking corpse. Side effects hit him hard. Jihan grabbed his face in disbelief. I told you, I don't give a damn about some Shin Hale whatever. Just tell me what happened to him. The man crossed his arms, peering at Jihan through them. Relax. Maybe he's a little roughed up, but he's still breathing. Jihan's voice rose, frustrated. Are you kidding me? Are you here to mess around or what? Hey, I'm just stating the facts, the man shrugged. No need to flip out. Jaw tight, Jihan asked. So Hale, he managed to take down Beck. While he was under both Berserk and an upgraded chip, the man pointed at him. Exactly. But that's not even the wild part. When Beck Sayuk went after Hale, I'm not sure if it was for recon or self-defense, but Suk-hyun was there too. He continued. Right away, Suk-hyun dropped a soundproof barrier in an illusion field. Smooth work. I couldn't even watch how it all ended, but it was one hell of a show. Jihan's eyes narrowed. So the shadows are in play now? Since when has Suk-hyun been following Hale around? The man tilted his head. First noticed him when his path crossed with his brother's. But no clue how long he's actually been involved. Jihan, flushed with anger. Suk-hyun works directly under my father. That means the shadow leader himself is involved. Why the hell would he be watching Hale? His expression darkened as the realization sank in. If the shadows are involved, this just got a whole lot messy, eh? I'll have to back off Hale. For now. And the chip? He asked sharply. The one I gave him. What if it leads back to me? No worries, the man said coolly. The chip had a built-in self-destruct. It probably disintegrated already. Jihan still looked uneasy. And if it didn't? The man ignored the tone. He walked over to the balcony door and slid it open. Then I guess I've got work to do. Still need to tie up some loose ends with Langsmith. With a short wave, he jumped off the balcony. Later, dear client, he said, pulling his hood down as he vanished into the night. Jihan stood by the railing, watching him disappear. One thought surged in his mind. He had to erase everything that could trace back to him, especially if it led Suk-hyun his way. Breaking through his home's security wards would be easy enough, but he had to move fast. A few days later, the protagonist leaned back at the table, stretching with a yawn. He thought about what the master of blue magic had told him earlier. Langsmith had suddenly clutched his chest and died before the ambulance even arrived. Folding his hands behind his head, he muttered, "Knew something like that was bound to happen. Didn't think it'd go down so quietly, though. Oh well." At least Suk-hyun had wrapped up the Beck-Sayuk situation neatly. Just then, his phone buzzed. He checked it. It was a message from his father. Negotiations with the Beck family are done. To keep this buried, they offered 43% of their Magic Stone mine profits. Well done. With that, overseas business funding won't be an issue. If you need anything, speak up, but choose carefully. Hale smiled. That's a long message coming from you, father. Feeling proud, maybe. He turned to the window, sunlight spilling in. Good. Looks like everything's finally settled. Now it was time to focus on the next challenge, the academic Olympiad. He glanced at the headlines. The entire world was watching the upcoming event. Only 53 days left. Suddenly, a wave of energy surged through his body. The 12-hour penalty's up, he thought, clenching his fist. Now was time to reach the third circle. He opened a book glowing faintly with power. Energy pulsed from its pages. Let's begin the next test. A light dropped onto the floor, casting a glow throughout the room. After some time, the protagonist opened his eyes. "Where is this?" he murmured, glancing around. A dim, hollow space stretched endlessly. It looked like a whole different dimension inside the book. Then, out of nowhere, a pulse of energy formed behind him. A figure appeared. A girl stood in front of him. "Welcome to the second page of the test," she said. "I'm Beta, the guide for this stage." The protagonist narrowed his eyes. "Second test, huh? Wonder how this one's going to compare to the last." He remembered a part of the previous task. Alpha, the guide of the first page, had ordered him to establish the final sequence of the elemental stones. Beta raised her hand. "This part of the test evaluates your control over your current mana circles. The rest of the details will be revealed once the trial begins. If you pass," she added, "pages 31 to 81 will unlock. They hold the knowledge of the third mana circle." The protagonist's eyes lit up. "Let's go." He grinned. "Page 81, huh? I thought they'd hand over maybe 15 pages total. This is way better." Still, it meant one thing. The third circle was in a league of its own. The Circle of Heart's Call and the Circle of Resonance were already strong, but this new one, it had to be something far beyond that. A mix of excitement and nervousness swirled inside him. Beta placed her hand over her chest. "Your test begins now." She vanished into thin air. A voice echoed through the space. "Student, it's time to reveal the second trial." Hale looked up and said, "That voice, it's the teacher." The teacher's voice echoed. Now, a series of magic circles will appear in front of him, hundreds in a row. He must activate every single one. The protagonist raised his hand and activated the first seal. Raybell commented, "If he can sync his resonance circle with each one, they'll trigger on their own." Hale reached out again and shouted in confusion. Why did it suddenly change? The teacher explained, "Each circle refreshes every 3 seconds. If he doesn't activate it in time, he starts over. He must stay sharp." The protagonist furrowed his brows. "So, it's about remembering the pattern?" Raybell added, "Actually, the sequence changes every time, so memorizing won't help at all." Hale sighed. Of course it wouldn't be simple. He closed his eyes, muttered, "All right," and then extended his hand, a small smile forming. "Let's give it a try." Hours later, the protagonist stood by a table, glancing at an open book. 8 hours. "I spent 8 hours on this," he muttered, "and I only managed 10 rounds." He picked up the book. "Still, slowly but surely, I'm getting there." He added, "Instinct alone won't cut it. There has to be some kind of pattern." He dropped on a bed and began digging through the pages. As he studied, a voice chimed in. "By the way, Iderd isn't the only book I write. If you hit a wall, young student, seek out his other writings. They'll help you move forward." Hale shot up. "So, Iderd isn't the only one? Then I'll need to track down more of his books." He paused, even if I don't know their titles or where to look. The next morning, the protagonist headed to the store, craving a break from the routine. Just then, Adela appeared out of nowhere. "Hey," she greeted. She looked surprised. "Hale." Later, the two found themselves walking through a park again. The protagonist grinned. "Funny how often we bump into each other." Adela smiled. "Yeah, seems like it." Hale raised an eyebrow. "You look like you haven't slept." Adela sighed and covered her face. "That's because I haven't." She pulled out her tablet. "I was reading this fascinating article, The Technical Possibilities of Teleportation Magic." The protagonist laughed. "Sounds like a pretty bold topic." Adela's eyes lit up. Exactly. But you should read it anyway, come on. As Hale sat down and started reading, he thought to himself, where did all these seals even come from? Adela sat beside him, sipping banana milk. Her bag still held a few more packs. The protagonist handed the tablet back to her. Interesting, he said. Adela smiled. Tell me what you think, too. Hale nodded. Well, except for one thing. They both said it at the same time. There's no clear conclusion. The protagonist stared at the screen, deep in thought. This analysis is built on data from ancient manuscripts by Ray Belbitinio. His eyes widened. Wait, Ray Belbitinio? He read over a few lines again. The structure and language are different, but some of these theories, they're definitely similar to Bitinio's work. Then he frowned. But the content feels shallow. There's not much depth here. He turned to Adela. Who did you say wrote this article? Adela looked surprised. It's by Go Sang-jun. Later, back in his room, the protagonist muttered to himself. Go Sang-jun, a magic researcher with no public info. No name, no age, not even gender. And this article is the only one out there. He glanced at a paper in front of him. Maybe the backlash scared them off. Then he picked up his phone, smiled faintly, and placed a call. Hello, he said into the receiver. This is Hale, a student, technically, but that title doesn't really suit me. In the Blue Magic Tower, Kim Kanjin picked up his ringing phone. Hello, it's Shin Hale, the voice came through. Kim Kanjin sighed. What is it now? I've been up all night researching. Hale chuckled. I found something that could benefit both of us. Kim Kangin's eyes lit up. Hale continued. But I'll need your help to track someone down. Not long after, at Obelisk Academy, Hale was training in a hall. He swung his arms, unleashing a burst of energy. Sunchan stood across from him, raising protective barriers. The blast broke through. Sunchan staggered and yelled, You maniac! Hale grinned. What? That was just the first magic circle. What's the big deal? Sunchan flipped backward to recover, glaring. You're asking what's the big deal? That was just the first circle. He clenched his jaw, still shaken. Hale smiled again and glanced at Sunchan, who now surrounded himself with 4 defense barriers. See, Hale teased. They held up just fine, didn't they? Sunchan growled. I nearly died. He jabbed a finger toward Hale. All right, that's it. Hand to hand now. Hale smirked. Sure, I'm game. But you really think you've got a shot at beating me without magic? Sunchan clenched his fists and shouted, Come on. The protagonist stepped up and landed a clean hit to Suanchan's chin, flipping him over. The students froze in shock, staring in silence. Hale just grinned and said, So, is that your big idea? Lying upside down, Sunchan could only groan in response. Hale gave a quick wink. If we're talking hand-to-hand, there's not much to tweak. It's just your second circle-enhanced body versus someone with third circle reinforcement. That alone makes it interesting, right? Hey, that was an insult, wasn't it? Sunchan barked, clearly annoyed. A while later, as he pressed a heating pad to his back, he muttered, That's so unfair. Not only does he cheat with magic, he's a monster in close quarters, too. He turned and grumbled, Such a dirty fighter. Hale stuck a bandage on Suanchan's back and joked, Then maybe he should go build up his endurance, too. Sunshine glanced over. By the way, what's his plan? Plan? Hale echoed. Sunshine suddenly asked, Is he gunning for the Olympics already? The protagonist's eyes widened. How'd you know? Sunshine smirked. It's obvious. You can tell on day 1. He walks around in a daze, totally wrapped up in his thoughts. Even during the magic stone suppression test, he was totally distracted. Everyone else finishes it in 27 seconds. He took 74. Still, Sunshine continued. He's been blowing everyone out of the water lately. Training tests, he's always on top. If he's serious about taking on the upperclassmen at the Olympiad, he can't afford to lose focus. But honestly, in his current state, there's no way he'll win. Even he knows that. The protagonist simply smiled and let out a loud hum. Sunshine raised a brow. See, he gets it. He paused, then added, Word is the top contender for the Olympiad is already a 5th circle mage. If he's still stuck at 2nd, well, the odds aren't in his favor. Hale frowned, thinking it over. Sunshine had a point. If he wanted to stand a chance at the Olympiad, he had to go beyond temporary boosts. Reaching the 4th circle was the bare minimum. And for that, he needed to find Go Sang-jun. Later, Hale arrived at a building, checking his navigator. Is this the right place? Kim Kanjin smiled. Sorry it took me a while. Took me a whole week to track him down. First time doing this. Time to get to the point. Go Sang-jun was here. The protagonist's eyes lit up. Wait, this place? Isn't this the used bookstore I always go to? He had a feeling. That was it. Go Sang-jun was hiding in plain sight. The bookstore had been right across from the academy all along. After being labeled incompatible with interactive magic, he had thrown himself into studying, especially from books, even old and used ones. But he still had no clue where Eider Codex could have come from. Maybe it came from here. Hale opened the door and stepped inside. Good afternoon. From beneath the table, the shopkeeper peeked out and blinked. Hale? Been a while. The protagonist smiled. How have you been? The shopkeeper chuckled. Same as always. Though I did hear you finally figured out how to use magic properly. You look a lot better now. Hale gave a small smile. Thank you, sir. The man waved it off. No need to thank me. I just sell books. But it's thanks to those books that I've come this far. The protagonist replied sincerely. The shopkeeper nodded slowly. Even if you're just being polite. Thank you. So, what brings you here today? Hale paused, then spoke carefully. Sir, I wanted to ask, is it possible to meet Go Sang-jun? Your son. The man tilted his head. Why are you asking about Sang-jun? No. How do you even know about him? Hale placed a hand over his heart. I read another article under his name. It got me curious, so I started asking questions, and eventually that led me here. I'm sorry for digging around in secret, but this really means a lot to me. I'd really like to meet him. The shopkeeper rubbed his neck and muttered, The article. Right, I remember that one. After a brief pause, he said, All right, I'll arrange it. The protagonist bowed deeply. Thank you, sir. The man added with a sigh, but don't expect answers. Not from that meeting. Hale blinked. Huh, what do you mean? Instead of replying, the shopkeeper simply opened a side door. Come with me. He's this way. They walked down a narrow hallway. Stopping in front of a closed door, the shopkeeper turned. He's in here. Hale's eyes widened. Go Sang-jun. Inside, a long-haired man lay motionless on a bed, hooked to a breathing apparatus. This is him, Hale said in disbelief. The shopkeeper pulled over a chair and nodded. Yes, my son, Go Sang-jun. After a moment of silence, the protagonist hesitantly asked, May I ask what happened? The shopkeeper gave a heavy nod. Of course. Sang-jun broke a taboo. He folded his hands together and added, A rule all mages are warned never to cross. Hale leaned in. A taboo? What kind? The man crossed his arms and closed his eyes. He ran a mana circle directly through his brain. He paused. That's a forbidden technique in the world of magic. The protagonist's eyes shot open. He pushed mana straight through his brain. Tried to replicate that. He clenched his fists and muttered. But why? Why would he do something like that? The salesman gave a serious look. For the sake of his research. He had a choice. Either prove his theory or abandon it midway. So the only way to make it work was to send mana directly into the brain, the protagonist realized. The salesman turned toward his son. I had to stop him. I couldn't let him go any further. So that's how he got into the Vintner magic style. Through a different path entirely, the protagonist thought. The salesman's voice dropped. Still, I doubt I could really answer any of your questions. Sang-jun would have gladly explained his work himself. He paused, then looked down. Forgive me. I shouldn't have brought it up. It's still a heavy weight for me. He placed a hand on the protagonist's shoulder. It's all right. No need to dwell on it. I saw firsthand how obsessed he was with his research. Every day, combing through ancient magical texts reminded me so much of Sang-jun. As the sky outside began to glow with the colors of sunset, Hale finally asked, Sir, if it's not too much, may I read the materials your son used for his research? The man looked at him closely. You really want to see Sang-jun's notes? I do, Hale said, sincere. They're just gathering dust, right? I like to learn from them, put them to use. The clerk held up 2 fingers. All right, but I have 2 conditions. Hale's eyes widened. First, the clerk said, if you're planning to continue Sang-jun's research on teleportation magic, I want you to credit me as a co-author. Hale smiled. Of course. I'll make sure of it. The clerk nodded. Good. Second, whatever you do, never try channeling mana directly into your brain. Hale shouted, Got it. I promise. The clerk led him into a room. This is where he worked. The books he used are here. He gestured around. These are probably the ones you'll need most. Hale's eyes scanned the bookshelf. Something about one of the spines caught his attention. That design, it looked familiar. He stepped closer, pulled the book out, and it slipped from his hands. His eyes widened in shock. He crouched down, staring at the cover. Is this Eiderd? He wondered, picking it up carefully. Sir, he said, holding the book up. The clerk glanced over, and for a moment, it was as if he saw his son standing there. That one, he asked. Sang-jun always kept it close, like there was something special in it. Go ahead, take it. There might be something important inside. Hale opened the book and nodded gratefully. Just as I thought, this awful handwriting again. The same as Idard's. They were written by the same person. He suddenly blurted out, Sir, can I bring this to read? Will you allow it? The clerk smiled warmly. Of course. Take whatever you need. Hale clutched the book to his chest. Thank you, really. Then he asked thoughtfully, have you seen other books with this same handwriting? The clerk rubbed his chin. I'm not sure. Suddenly, Hale yelled. What about the red hardcovers? The fancy ones. The clerk blinked. Red hardcovers? No, nothing like that. Books like those aren't common around here. Then how did Sang-jun get his hands on one? Hale wondered, staring back down at the book. All right, thanks anyway. Come to think of it, how did a dread end up in his collection? Later, Hale sat on his bed, surrounded by the books. He sighed. I searched every corner of Sang-jun's library, and this was the only one that looked like Idard's. He picked up the book, smiled faintly. Even finding one is still something. Then, suddenly, energy crackled around the books. They began glowing, merging. Hale's eyes widened in disbelief. What's going on? In a burst of light, cakes, confetti, and roses erupted from the book. A voice rang out. I hereby bequeath this book to the rightful owner of Idard. Hale gasped. Not again. The voice continued. This book is named MIM. Hale froze. That's my teacher's voice. He felt himself being pulled in, transported again to the book dimension. The voice echoed once more. Enjoy the contents with all your heart, my student. A tiny energy bear climbed out of the book as the world around Hale shifted. He now stood in a room draped with green vines crawling across the walls. Looking around, he asked, Where am I? Suddenly, a girl poked his neck from behind. Wow, you made it. Welcome to Book Mimir. Hale turned, confused. Who are you? The girl pointed to herself. Me? I'm Mimir. She flung her arms out dramatically. And I'm in charge of measuring the Mimir well. She reached out her hand with a smile. Nice to meet you, successor. Hale stood up and asked, The Mimir well? Mimir nodded. That's the name of this library. Ray Bell Bitinio created it just for his successors, those who walk the path of the teacher. Hale glanced around. It's a bit small for a library. Mimir tapped her cheek with a finger. That's because your progress is still modest. The Mimir, well, grows along with your level. Judging by the current size, you haven't even passed the second page test yet. Hale sighed. Yeah, that's true. Mimir tilted her head thoughtfully. Then, would it be okay if I speak casually with you? Hale blinked, surprised. She flicked his nose playfully. We'll be seeing each other a lot, and formality would just make things awkward. Let's keep it casual, okay. He chuckled. All right, sounds good. Mimir grinned. Great. Oh, and by the way, successor, you're not bad at all. You've already reached the second circle. Hale frowned. What's so special about finding you quickly? She extended her hand, narrowing her eyes slightly. It means you're capable of jumping straight to the fifth circle. His eyes went wide. Fifth circle? Seriously? Raising her hand, Mimir summoned a book off the shelf with magic. It floated down gently into her hands, and she passed it to him. Read this. You'll understand. He took the book and asked, Is this the full resonance theory? In here, you'll find everything that was left out of the Idard, Mimir replied. Like the contents of that book you're holding. Then, why didn't they just include it all in the Idard? Hale asked. Good question, Mimir said. The Idard is already packed with tons of content and tests for every stage of the successor's journey. There are other reasons, too. That's why supplementary books like this were made. Hale looked down at the book. So the teacher went into more detail inside the Mimir well. Exactly, she said. Think of the Idard as the main thesis. This one is more like a reference guide. Got it, he replied. He looked around again. So that means every book here contains knowledge tied to a specific level. And as I grow, more books will appear. Mimir pointed at him with a wink. That's right. So, do you think you'll figure out how to reach the fifth circle with this? Hale nodded confidently. Definitely. This will help me crack the second test for sure. Sometime later, Hale floated weightlessly, suspended in zero gravity. Is this the 79th? He wondered. The second test required activating 100 magic circles. During his first attempt, it had taken him 8 exhausting hours to manage just 10. But now, after his visit to the Mimir well, he had already reached 79 in one go. He grinned. It was nearly impossible before. Then his smile faded slightly. If I push myself, I might even hit 100 a night, unless I get unlucky. He pictured Mimir and thought, getting that book before the Olympics, pure luck. Later, Hale followed a maid down a long corridor. Why did father summon me? He wondered. Could it be about the compensation for what happened with Sayuk? He recalled Sayuk collapsed on the ground and sighed. I was hoping to study with Mimir after school, but this is important too. The maid stopped at the office door. Young Master Hale has arrived. Inhyuk, seated behind his desk, nodded. Let him in. Hale stepped inside and said, Father. Inhyuk gestured to a seat. Sit. I'll keep it short this time. His tone was serious. This wasn't entirely your doing, but your contribution was a little more than half. So, including the previous gains, your share in the magic stone mines now totals 26%. I see, Hale replied calmly. This is no small reward. Inhyuk said, You've earned it. So, have you thought about what you want? Hale nodded, hand to his chest. Yes, I'd like one of the ancient relics stored deep in our family treasury. Inhyuk raised an eyebrow. An ancient relic? You do realize most of them are just antiques, right? Rarely do they hold any actual secrets. I don't believe that, Hale said. I think the stories about ancient relics and the events described in they're all real. Inhyuk rubbed his temples. You're still young, I suppose, but honestly, believing in that kind of nonsense is foolish. Then he pointed at him. Still, your choice. You may take one item. Hale's eyes lit up. Thank you. So, Inhyuk asked, which relic are you choosing? Hale answered without hesitation. The one kept beneath the treasury, the Ray Bell Bitinio cloak. Deep beneath the Shin family estate, inside the underground treasury, the assistant carefully handed a box to Inhyuk. He took it, then passed it to Hale. I hope you won't regret this choice, Inhyuk said. Hale smiled. Thank you, father. Inhyuk let out a sigh. Can't believe you actually bought into that ridiculous fairy tale. Well, you're still young. He crossed his arms. Just focus on your training. That way, you won't have regrets later. You're dismissed. Yes, sir, Hale replied, still smiling. A little later, riding in a car, Hale glanced at the box in his lap. Most of the relics in our family are the real deal, he thought. If this is truly Ray Bell Bitinio's cloak, then not even 30% of the magic stone mine profits could compare. He folded his arms. But what if it's not real? He opened the box. His eyes widened. Wait, this! He gently lifted the cloak from inside. Is this fiber made from pure mana cloth? He wondered. Mana cloth, an ultra-rare material process from magic stones, handled by fewer than 30 artisans in the entire world. But this cloak wasn't just partially made with mana cloth. It was made entirely from it. Not only that, Hale whispered. This technique didn't even exist in their era. He ran his fingers across the fabric. This exceeds any known artifact woven from mana fibers. I've never seen anything like it. Back in his room, Hale sat down and examined the cloak more closely. His eyes landed on the rough, scribbled inscription. What horrible handwriting, he muttered. It's got to be the teacher's work. I've gotten used to deciphering his mess. He lifted the cloak again, admiring it. But this, what kind of structure is this? The inner and outer layers seemed tangled, inverted. Working with mana cloth was already complex. Normally, the inner layer enhanced mana flow for stronger spell casting, while the outer layer reduced it to guard against incoming magic damage. But this cloak? The outer layer pulled mana in, making the wearer more vulnerable, and the inner layer blocked mana, weakening outgoing spells. This is completely backwards, Hale muttered. There's no way the teacher would make such a basic mistake. Then it hit him. Wait, what if I just turn it inside out? He flipped the cloak, but the structure didn't change. Even reversed, the inner and outer layers kept their original functions. Hale's expression tightened. This was done on purpose, but why? Is this really an ancient relic? He leaned back, staring at it in silence. No wonder father had it buried in storage. Not long after, Hale returned to Mimir's library. Mimir, he called out. She turned to him with a bright smile. Oh, successor, how have you been? He held out the cloak. Her eyes widened as she rushed over. Wait, is that Raoul's cloak? You actually found it. That's incredible. Yes, Hale replied. But there's something strange about it. Mimir took the cloak into her hands, inspecting it closely. Strange how? She studied it for a moment, then suddenly screamed, making Hale jump back. Holding up 2 fingers, she asked, You're still at the second circle, right? Yeah, Hale replied, confused. Why? Mimir sighed. That explains it. Of course you wouldn't know yet. Okay, enough with the riddles, Hale said. How am I supposed to use this thing? She held up crossed fingers. Forgive me, successor, but I can't explain it yet. What? Why not? Mimir returned the cloak to his hands and crossed her arms. There's a specific kind of magic found only in the Wait Inner style. Her eyes widened. Wait Inner has special magic? Hale asked. Suddenly, she grabbed her head and let out a panicked scream. I shouldn't even be talking about this. Clearly shaken, she took a breath and stretched out her hand. All right, I'll say just one thing. There's a special form of magic in the Wait Inner style. It's called true magic, Hale repeated. Mimir stood tall, placing her hands on her waist. It's not like the magic you're used to. True magic is real. What does that mean? You're saying I haven't been using real magic all this time? She nodded. Sadly, yes. Then she tapped her lips. But I'm not allowed to explain more about true magic until you reach a certain point. Hale rubbed his chin. So there's some kind of restriction? Exactly, she said. This cloak is an artifact. It's designed to help you use true magic. So, you're really not going to tell me anything more? He asked, disappointed. Mimir smiled. You catch on fast, successor. Hale opened the cloak again, studying it. All right then, what level do I need to reach to learn about this artifact? She held up 5 fingers. The 5th circle, or more accurately, complete mastery of the 5th circle. That's when you unlock the 5th page of the trials. From there, the Wait Inner style's 5th circle magic will truly begin to shine. After some time, Hale began reattempting the 2nd page of the book. 98, 9, 10, 100, he shouted. He had finally done it. A voice echoed. Congratulations on passing. Hale glanced around. That voice, it's the teacher. The teacher continued. Completing the 2nd trial must have drained you. You've worked hard. Now it's time to teach you how to weave the 3rd magic circle. Clenching his fist, Hale muttered, the 3rd circle. The teacher explained, the 3rd tier of the Wakener's internal style is called the Circle of Interaction. Hale's eyes widened. Circle of Interaction? Later, he closed the book, reflecting quietly. He had passed the 2nd trial. Staring at the cover, he thought, now, to craft the 3rd magic circle. He stood up with a grin. If it weren't for the cloak in Mimir's well, I'd still be stuck on that 2nd test. The night before, in Mimir's well, Mimir extended her hand and spoke, or better yet, mastering the 5th circle to unlock the 5th page of the trials. From this point on, the Wakener's 5th circle magic shines even brighter. Holding the cloak in his hands, Hale said, no choice. Until I master the 5th circle, I'll have to set this aside. Mimir interrupted. Wait, successor, what are you thinking? You can't just toss something this precious into storage. Hale asked, but how am I even supposed to use it? The inner and outer layers are all mixed up. It'll just get in the way. Snatching it back, Mimir shouted, oh my god, give it here. She smiled. This cloak traps your mana, keeping it from leaking out. It lets you hit mana overabundance. Hale's eyes went wide. With mana overflow, your circle of infinity spins faster, she explained. That means your brain will absorb more mana, and your mental fatigue will fade quicker. Same goes for physical exhaustion. Hale took the cloak back. So, wearing this will cut down how much I need to sleep? Mimir reached for it again and yelled, oh my god, are you insane? She covered her face, squealing. With this on, you might never need sleep again. Hale blinked. Wait, what do you mean, never? Mimir answered, exactly that. Wear it for just 5 hours a day, and you'll hit your peak in no time. And that's just one of the side effects. Sharing this with the successor was probably a smart move, right? The protagonist smiled confidently. I'll reach the 5th circle soon, no matter what. Mimir nodded, but added firmly, just remember, this only works for the successor. For anyone else, it's poison. No one else can wear it. Hale replied, of course. I get it. With a tool like this, the rest of the test should be a breeze. 2 days later, Hale sat cross-legged on the floor beside his bed, still wrapped in the cloak. He stared ahead, deep in thought. He was so close, but something still didn't click. He muttered to himself, I think I'm almost there. I just need to understand the circle of interaction. The 3rd circle of the Wakener's inner style, interaction. It allowed him to influence the spell formation process of others. But to tap into another's mana, perfect synchronization was key. Closing his eyes, Hale thought, so that's why syncing all those circles was important, to learn how to affect someone else's magic. He let out an excited laugh. This is actually kind of amazing. I never thought of it this way. He hadn't expected the second trial to pave the way for creating the third circle. Opening the book again, he read, "To weave the third circle, the circle of heart's call and resonance must align in perfect harmony and connect with the surrounding mana. By continuing to resonate, the third circle will form." Clenching his fist, Hale said, "All right, this time, I'll get it." He took a deep breath. Absorb the mana in the air. Sink it all. With all this extra mana, it's like building a house, one brick at a time. Sitting in the lotus position, he closed his eyes. Mana flowed through him, settling into place. Every bit he absorbed seemed to carry a voice. In his mind, he felt like he was floating weightlessly, and he heard them. A playground. It's small, but it's warm. We want to stay, play here. The mana didn't want to leave. They wanted to stay together. Hale, drifting in this meditative state, thought, I've come this far, but this is just the halfway point. I need to maintain the resonance. The voices continued. We need a bigger space to play. We'll hold hands, form a circle. We'll dance, sing, become one. He visualized the mana like little figures, holding hands, forming a ring of energy. But suddenly, Hale winced. Too hot. If the mana deviation exceeded even 1%, his body couldn't hold it. He could only accept energy within that narrow threshold. He needed to reduce that margin, even down to 1/100%, using the third circle to gently, almost invisibly, bring it under control. Time passed. Eventually, Hale opened his eyes, sweat dripping from his brow. He slowly got up. It's done. Stretching out his hand, he shouted, Circle 1, Heart's Call. Circle 2, Resonance. Then, with a clenched fist, he declared, Circle 3, Interaction. Hale grinned to himself. He had finally grasped the third circle, interaction. Now he had to get stronger fast and push toward mastering the fifth. Sometime later, he was stretched out on a thick tree branch, birds casually perched on his head and leg. A combat survival test, he mused. It was a large-scale trial held on the rugged grounds of Gangwon Province, a wide, open training zone filled with rocky terrain. The test ran for 32 hours straight. Each participant carried a special artifact for evaluation. The task was simple: survive within a gradually shrinking zone for the entire duration. Hale glanced at his watch. All right, time to move. But there was a catch. Survival didn't just mean fending off monsters. Other students would come for you too. And earning points? That meant fighting. The birds scattered from his body just as Gahak suddenly appeared below the tree, sending a surge of energy at him. Die! Gahak shouted. Hale sprang up, dodging the blast. He moved behind Gahak in a blink and launched a counterattack. Gahak sneered. You're fast, but you can't escape. Hale threw a punch, but Gahak blocked it with a barrier, laughing. Seriously? You think fists are going to break through this? But Hale activated interaction, his third circle, and the barrier instantly shattered. What? Gahak gasped. With a quick earth push, Hale hurled him backward. Gahak clenched his jaw, furious. That weak earth spell broke my barrier. Hale stared him down. And who's the real fool here? You try to sneak attack and still shouted like an amateur. He balled his fist, realizing this is the power of interaction. He'd targeted the core of the second circle's barrier, weakening it just enough so even a basic first circle spell could break through. A voice echoed across the area. Student Kong Gahak, eliminated. Hale adjusted his watch. That guy practically set himself up. No wonder it worked. The voice came again. Shin Hale earns 10 points. Hale smiled. Nice way to start. Later, as he walked through the forest, his mind lingered on the new circle. He could feel himself getting addicted to it. At this rate, I'll be able to use it against even third circle magic soon, he thought. Suddenly, he heard footsteps behind him. He turned on instinct and fired a fireball into the trees. Then his eyes focused ahead. Bloody Claw wolves? They had already surrounded him. Hale scanned his surroundings. The wolves were drawing in fast. They must have been drawn here by the noise from that last fight, he thought. He started loosening up his limbs. If I were just another student, I might complain about getting attacked non-stop. Maybe even cry about it, he said casually. But I'm aiming for the top. There's no room for excuses. This pace. I welcome it. The wolves howled and charged. Hale's energy surged as he roared back. Come on, then. Let's see what you can do. Meanwhile, the instructors were seated in front of a wall of monitors, tracking every movement. A female staff member pointed out, Adela Starrett, Ji Sunchan, Kim Kong-soo, Ma, Jae Hak. Those students are standing out. At this rate, they're all looking like top 10 material. A male instructor chuckled. Yeah, But surviving to the end is the real challenge. She turned toward another instructor. No one doubts Shin anymore, right? Instructor Go Chong-su smiled. That's for sure. The boy added loudly. He's nothing like that so-called amateur who was nearly expelled. She raised a brow. Expelled? Really? He's been at the top of training with a huge lead. Still is, in fact. It's crazy how well he understands the behavior of those blood claws, another instructor noted. He didn't attack right away. He waited for them to gather the whole pack. Use that tactic to rack up more points, someone else added. If he keeps this up, the Olympics might be within reach, one of them said with a grin. Back in the field, Hale wiped sweat from his brow and looked at the fallen wolves around him. Must be around 60 points now, he said, surveying the scene. Then the ground began to tremble. What, an earthquake, he muttered. No, the ground's moving. He leapt toward a cluster of crystals, jaw tight. This is it. Something massive stirred. A colossal beast emerged, its bulk rivaling an elephant, its shell glimmering with emeralds. An emerald turtle? Hale thought, eyes wide. Pushing himself to his feet, he smirked. Where did a rare monster like this come from?